Chapter 1994. The white-bearded elder's heart seemed to have missed a beat. He said in a trembling voice, "What corpse clan are you talking about?" I only suspected that you were from the Hunter Alliance, so I put some in your spiritual tea. Some." Seeing that the two elders were showing signs of turning into corpses, he could not explain himself no matter what. "There is no need to explain. I knew from the beginning that you were not ordinary people," Suyu said lightly. Judging from the traces of battle left in the cavern, it was indeed very serious. With the powerful cultivation of the hunters, did they need to fight so hard to capture a simple master of a 3-star civilization? Obviously, the people who were captured were not weak. At the very least, they had fought fiercely with the hunters for a while. But the white-bearded elder in front of him was evasive, so Suyu had been paying attention from the beginning. Now, it seemed a little unexpected, but also expected. What was unexpected was that the white-bearded elder and his group were indeed extraordinary. What was unexpected was that they were from the Corpse Clan. The entire 3-star civilization had been invaded by the Corpse Clan. It was really shocking. The last 3-star civilization that was almost invaded was the Dayu Empire. It was only because of Suyu's appearance that it was coincidentally interrupted. Unexpectedly, this civilization, named Green Bull, had long been occupied by the Corpse Clan. However, the target of the Hunter Alliance was quite clear, the Corpse Clan. It seemed that the scourge of the Corpse Clan had alarmed a higher civilization, and they had issued a mission to exterminate the Corpse Clan. The white-bearded elder was exposed. He leaped up, wanting to jump into the ancient well. Suyu flicked his finger, and a wisp of space sealed over the ancient well, preventing him from entering. Then, with a glare, the power of desolation swept out, shattering the white-bearded elder's skin. Under the skin, there was indeed a Corpse Clan member emitting a strong corpse energy. "Come with me." Suyu's eyes shot out 2 beams of soul light, and he controlled it. The corpse energy in the ancient well was sealed, and the 2 elders felt slightly better. The darkness in their eyes quickly receded. After understanding everything that had happened, the 2 Earth Elders were filled with shame. They had looked down on the new faction master, but they did not expect to be tricked as soon as they came out to carry out the mission. Instead, it was the faction master who had predicted the future. Thinking of this, they could not help but stop looking down on him, ashamed. "Capture the remaining Corpse Clan members," Suyu said. With the 2 elders taking action, the remaining Corpse Clan members in the cavern could not escape and were all subdued. "Come, let's head to the Seamless Civilization." The Seamless Civilization of the 4-star civilization was destroyed even more thoroughly. The entire civilization was destroyed, leaving behind only a scene of devastation. Corpses of the corpse race remained on the ground, as well as large patches of vegetation infected with corpse chi. The next civilization. Suyu was expressionless. Through the local interstellar civilization teleportation, they locked onto the hunter's path. A whole year had passed. Suyu and the others had been to more than 10 civilizations, and they had used up thousands of star stones. Finally, they stopped at a 4-star civilization called the Demonic Moon. Many years ago, Moon Demon had been completely occupied by the corpse race. Half a year ago, the hunter tribes suddenly charged over and annihilated all the corpse race in a short few days with the might of a thunderbolt. Then, with the Demonic Moon as the foundation, he launched a brazen attack on the Immortal Phoenix, the 5-star civilization that ruled over the Demonic Moon. The 5-star civilization was the real target of the Hunter Alliance. It was easy to imagine how terrifying a 5-star civilization that had been completely occupied was. Sending such a powerful hunter team to annihilate them was definitely not without reason. The current Demonic Moon used to be one of the Immortal Phoenix's ring civilizations. Standing on the Demonic Moon, one could clearly sense the intense battle on the Immortal Phoenix. Waves of world-destroying fluctuations came from within the Immortal Phoenix. At this moment, entering the Immortal Phoenix rashly was extremely dangerous. There was no need to be a burden. "Master, there are more and more creatures gathering on the Demonic Moon. It is hard to say whether there are corpse race among them. Should we retreat to a safe civilization?" Su Yu's soul swept across the demonic moon civilization. Since the battle broke out in the immortal Phoenix, unidentified creatures had been pouring in from all directions. Some wanted to find out what was going on, while others were just observing. There were also some corpse race members who had escaped from the immortal Phoenix civilization. They disguised themselves as creatures and were preparing to use the demonic moon's inter-civilization transportation portal to escape. It doesn't matter. How strong can the corpse race that has retreated be? So you said calmly, go and guard the inter-civilization transportation portal. Whether you're coming to the demonic moon or leaving, you need to verify your identity. The two elders nodded slightly. With the strength of the four crown emperors in the middle stage, they had no difficulty in occupying the inter-civilization transportation portal. Su Yu sat cross-legged on the ground. The battle between the hunters and the corpse race would probably continue for a long time. He would take this opportunity to clean up the Tai Chi faction's gains. Apart from obtaining the position of master by chance and taking control of the Tai Chi faction's treasury, the biggest gain should be the space storage device of the Black and White Elders. He glanced inside and found that the number of items in the storage device was astonishing. In addition to a large number of divine stones, there were 2 precious Juyang elixirs and as many as 70 or 80 Juyin elixirs. Su Yu did not care too much about these until a very special item came into view. A purple gold wooden box came into view. In the wooden box floated a palm-sized black and white wing. Seeing this wing, he was slightly startled, and then he understood. The last part of the Tai Chi Yin-Yang wings has fallen into the hands of the Black and White Elders. Su Yu was surprised. According to Ying Feng Xiao, the second part of the Tai Chi Yin-Yang wings was in the hands of an Earth Elder. He did not expect it to be in the hands of the Black and White Elders. The Earth Elder must have bribed the Black and White Elders with this item. No wonder this old guy is targeting me everywhere. He wants me dead, so that's why. Su Yu suddenly understood. The Black and White Elders must have seen through the Tai Chi Yin-Yang wings hidden in his body. Otherwise, it would be difficult to explain why he would target Su Yu for no reason. But it's all mine. Su Yu smiled. His shoulders shook, and a small Tai Chi Yin-Yang wings appeared from his back. Compared to the one that belonged to the Black and White Elders, Su Yu's Tai Chi Yin-Yang wings were much smaller. The Yin and Yang energy circulating within them was less than half. As expected of the 2 parts of the Tai Chi Yin-Yang wings, Su Yu said to himself. His Tai Chi Yin-Yang wings should have the speed of a 4-crown divine warrior, right? With a thought, Su Yu stacked the 2 parts of the Tai Chi Yin-Yang wings together, then forced them to fuse by force. 1 month later, the 2 parts of the Tai Chi Yin-Yang wings disappeared and were replaced by a huge black and white wing that was 3 feet long. It was full of Yin and Yang energy, and the feathers on it were vivid and lifelike. So you could not wait to refine it and fuse it into his body. With a thought, he activated it. Swoosh! The results satisfied Su Yu. He had crossed from the southern end of the Demon Moon civilization to the northern end. It could be said that he had crossed an entire 4-star civilization. With such a distance, he had definitely reached the level of a mid-stage 5-crown divine warrior. Back at the mountain range, Su Yu was secretly delighted. The 3 parts of the Tai Chi Yin-Yang wings were already so amazing. If he could refine the Pathmaster's bone, how amazing would it be? Su Yu took out a piece of the Pathmaster's bone. He had obtained 2 pieces of the Pathmaster's bone from the common people's chests. The one in front of him had already been drained of the Pathmaster's blood, so it was not very useful to Su Yu. He tried to fuse it into the Tai Chi Yin-Yang wings and found that it was not too difficult. A year later, Su Yu suddenly opened his eyes. The Tai Chi Yin-Yang wings in his palm had once again undergone an earth-shattering transformation. It had grown from 3 feet to 6 feet. The Yin and Yang energy was no longer in a flowing state. Instead, it burned like a raging flame. It was extremely shocking. Su Yu licked his lips in excitement. He could no longer determine how much the Tai Chi Yin-Yang wings had evolved. It should at least be above the mid-stage 5-crown divine warrior. A 4-star civilization was only so big, so he did not dare to test it. If he was not careful, he would be transported into nothingness, and everything would be over. Keeping it in his body, Suyu quietly took out a 9-yin elixir and swallowed it. A day later, his cultivation rose sharply, and he quickly returned to the late-stage 2-crown divine warrior. He had finally returned to the peak of his cultivation. However, he was now the master of the Tai Chi faction. The cultivation of a 2-crown divine warrior was not enough. He needed to continue to improve. But for a 2-crown divine warrior to break through to the 3-crown realm, he needed more than the energy contained in the 9-yin elixir. Unless he encountered the majestic energy that poured out when he broke through the Emperor's door, he would need at least another 10 years to break through to the 3-crown divine warrior with just the 9-yin elixir. However, opportunities could only be encountered by chance. He stopped cultivating and looked at the fairy phoenix. He found that the fierce battle that had lasted for a whole year was showing signs of weakening. It seems like it's almost time to wrap things up. Suyu's eyes shone with wisdom. In a flash, he arrived near the inter-civilization transportation portal. Greetings, Faction Master. 2 elders were methodically inspecting the people entering and leaving the Demon Moon civilization. Suyu waved his hand. No need for formalities. Have you found a corpse clan breaking in? Yes, and there are quite a few of them. But their cultivation is not too high. Suyu nodded slowly. His eyes shone brightly. There will be more coming. Get ready. Almost as soon as his voice fell, a large white light flickered. Many people were transported together. Suyu's eyes flashed. Space Lotus. A lotus instantly enveloped the entire transportation portal. When the white light faded, the people inside were immediately revealed. They were hundreds of people from the Corpse Clan. They were injured, but without exception, their murderous auras were astonishing. As soon as they appeared, they roared and pounced on the nearby creatures. But what they pounced on was the isolated Space Lotus. The 2 elders' scalps went numb. They sucked in a breath of cold air. The 100 people in front of them were all from the Corpse Clan. Unlike in the past, the Corpse Clan did not even have time to disguise themselves. It was obvious that they had come a hurry. Among them, the lowest cultivation was at the level of an overlord, and the highest was a 3-crown divine warrior. Seeing this scene, they secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, the faction master's law of space was excellent. Otherwise, if he rushed out, they would not have been able to stop him. Destroy. Suyu stood in front of the transportation portal with his hands behind his back. Boom! The Space Lotus collapsed, and all of them were destroyed. After a wave of annihilation, the transportation portal flashed urgently again. The 2 elders looked as if they were facing a great enemy. They said solemnly, "Another group of defeated Corpse Clan." Suyu did the same. A Space Lotus sealed them all. When the white light dissipated, Suyu glanced at them roughly. After confirming that they were all from the Corpse Clan, he prepared to destroy them. Chapter 1995. One of them was relatively more familiar. She was the Mountain Lord of the number 1 organization in the Dark Star civilization, the Cloud Mist Divine Mountain, Yun Xinshuang. Of course, she was just pretending to be the mountain chieftain. She had another identity. Beside her was a young girl whom he had met once before. At this moment, the aunt and niece were mixed in with the corpse race, fighting against them with difficulty. Yin Xinshuang's face was full of displeasure as she shouted. So he was slightly stunned. He had not expected to meet them here. With a slight shift in his heart, Suyu teleported the 2 of them out of the Space Lotus with the power of space. Then, with a light tap of his finger, the Space Lotus collapsed and destroyed hundreds of Corpse Clan members on the spot. The aunt and niece suddenly broke free from the siege of the corpse race and let out a long sigh of relief. Yin Xinshuang's heart was slightly shaken when she saw Suyu casually killing hundreds of Corpse Clan members. She bowed to Suyu's back and said, "Brother, thank you for saving us." Suyu turned around unhurriedly and said with a faint smile, "With our friendship, why do I need to thank you?" Yin Xinshuang was startled. What a familiar voice. Yin Xinshuang's face turned deathly pale, and it was as if she had fallen into despair. She shouted with unwillingness, You were clearly left behind by me in the quicksand of nothingness. When did you escape? Void quicksand?" Suyu was slightly startled. Moreover, Why was he so afraid of him? He remembered that this woman was still holding a grudge against him for stealing the 2 pieces of the Tao Lord's bones. On the other hand, the young lady looked at Su Yu's hair and muttered, "Purple hair turning into silver hair. It seems like this is the real dashing brother." However, Yin Qinshuang didn't think too much about it. She grabbed the young girl and fled. Su Yu was bewildered. With a wave of his hand, a space barrier appeared in front of the 2 women. He said, "You 2 have escaped in the wrong direction. The inter-civilization transportation portal is here." Yin Qinshuang turned her head around in despair. Her face was filled with humiliation as she shouted, "Su Yu, don't even think about touching us. Even if I die, I won't let you take advantage of us." The 2 Earth Elders looked at each other before averting their gazes with embarrassed expressions. This new sect master's methods of wooing women were truly dishonorable, to the point of forcing the other party to this extent. The blue veins on Su Yu's forehead throbbed. It was really baffling. "I think you're thinking too much." Su Yu snorted lightly. "Do you think that I would touch you when you're already so old?" Yin Qinshuang was furious. "Stop putting on an act. You've been chasing us since the Sea of Constellations for 10 years, and now you're saying you're not interested in me?" So you could sense that something was amiss. Ever since he left the Darkstar civilization, he had not even met this woman. So how could he have chased after her for a decade? "We haven't met each other all these years, have we?" Su Yu asked calmly. Yin Qinshuang finally sensed that something was amiss. The girl reminded him, "I told you that the handsome purple-haired brother and the silver-haired brother are 2 different people. Their temperaments are completely different." "Purple hair?" Su Yu's eyes turned serious. "What does that mean?" The young girl gazed longingly at the handsome older brother she hadn't seen for a long time and said, "He's exactly like you, but his hair is purple and he's extremely lecherous. He's been chasing us and wants us to sleep with him." Hearing this, Su Yu's expression turned grave. "A purple-haired, so you like him? Are you really not that person?" Yin Qinshuang asked tentatively. She also found it strange. In the past, Su Yu didn't seem like an impatient, perverted person. Instead, he was full of righteousness. But the purple-haired Su Yu was the complete opposite. She had thought that Su Yu had exposed his true nature. Now that she saw the silver-haired Su Yu again, she confirmed her suspicions. "Su Yu, we met a person who is almost exactly like you. He's very powerful, and he's at the level of a 5-crown emperor. We've been hiding all these years, and it was only with great difficulty that we managed to escape," Yin Qinshuang said. Su Yu's heart sank. Could this be the doing of the sinful woman? When he had left the Sea of Constellations, he had felt an evil aura descending. Now, it seemed likely that it was the purple-haired Su Yu. It was most likely that the sinful woman had released him to seek revenge on Su Yu. How persistent! Su Yu snorted, his eyes cold. The sinful woman had sealed the ancient formation, but she still wouldn't give up. "It's good that it's not you. All these years, I've always thought that he was you. Both of you look exactly the same." Of course, there was no difference, because the purple-haired Su Yu's body was most likely the body that had been stolen by the sinful woman all those years ago. The appearance of the purple-haired Su Yu made Su Yu's heart sink. A 5-crown emperor had been personally sent by the sinful woman. His abilities must be extraordinary, and he definitely wasn't an ordinary 5-crown emperor. After thinking for a long time, Su Yu gradually formed a plan. "I hope that you can explain more about the purple-haired Su Yu to me later. Now, if you have nothing else to do, please wait here. Once I'm done with the matters at hand, I'll take you back to the Tai Chi faction." Yin Qinshuang's mind had already calmed down. She stared at Su Yu, her mind working again. She said with a faint smile, "Su Yu, you seem to have forgotten something. Since he was the silver-haired Su Yu, his cultivation level should still be that of a 2-crown emperor." She couldn't deal with the purple-haired Su Yu, but she was more than capable of dealing with the silver-haired Su Yu. Su Yu laughed. "What? You want the 2 Pathmasters' bones back? What do you think?" Yin Qinshuang said stubbornly. Su Yu smiled, not saying a word. Yin Qinshuang thought he was afraid. "Hand it over obediently, and we might spare you this once on account of you saving us. Otherwise what?" The two Earth Elders' faces had already darkened. So you had threatened their faction master in front of them. He really didn't respect them. The matter between me and Su Yu has nothing to do with the two of you. Yin Qinshuang casually glanced at them. When she couldn't see through their cultivation levels, her heart tightened. The two of you are... The two Earth Elders slowly released the cultivation levels of a four-crown emperor, suppressing Yin Qinshuang. Why does the matter between you and our faction master have nothing to do with us? Faction master. Yin Qinshuang looked at Su Yu, her face filled with shock. After not seeing him for 10 years, Su Yu had actually become the faction master of a powerful faction? To be able to make two four-crown emperors submit to him, this faction must have come from a powerful four-star civilization. My two friends, I hope you understand that this human called Su Yu is extremely cunning. He once pretended to be the leader of a faction from the Dark Star civilization. How did he manage to become your faction master? Insolence. The two Earth Elders roared in anger, their terrifying auras suppressing Yin Qinshuang so much that she couldn't even lift her head. The faction master was born in front of all of us. How dare you spread rumors and cause trouble? The Earth Elder shouted. Yin Qinshuang was extremely shocked. Su Yu was a human from the Sea of Constellations. How could he be qualified to inherit the position of faction master of a four-star civilization? How did he manage to convince the powerful fighters of this faction? What a terrifyingly cunning human, she thought to herself. Seeing that she had angered the two Earth Elders, she hurriedly said, "It was a slip of the tongue. Please forgive me. To tell you the truth, the two of us are from a five-star civilization. We are craftsmen, and our elders are the masters of civilizations. Please give us some face." There was a hint of arrogance in her words. A faction from a mere four-star civilization had no status in front of a five-star civilization. What's so great about a five-star civilization? Furthermore, you are only a descendant of the master of civilization. Do you know that the one standing before you is the master of civilization of the Tai Chi civilization? Yin Qinshuang felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She was stunned on the spot. The master of a five-star civilization? How could Yin Qinshuang not know the great name of the Tai Chi faction? Her initial range of activity had been within the Tai Chi faction. Su Yu had become the master of the Tai Chi civilization, controlling the entire five-star civilization and the radiation zone. Yin Qinshuang felt that this was a dream, an unrealistic dream. But the two Earth Elders did not need to lie to her. Faction master, how should we deal with this woman? She has been disrespectful to you. Su Yu smiled lightly. She can be spared, but she cannot escape death. Place a seal on her and temporarily control her. Yes. Yin Qinshuang bit her lip bitterly. She had never imagined that Su Yu would become the master of a five-star civilization. If she had known this would happen, how would she have dared to hope for the bone of the Path Master? With no other choice, she obediently stood to the side after they placed a seal on her. Su Yu asked, "Why are you in the Celestial Phoenix civilization?" Yin Qinshuang said helplessly, "Isn't it all thanks to the purple-haired Su Yu? We fled all the way to the Celestial Phoenix civilization, only to find that it had become the headquarters of the Corpse clan. My niece and I hid here and there for a few years, spending years of effort to prepare a way to escape from the Celestial Phoenix civilization. But the Hunter Alliance suddenly attacked, causing us to be discovered by the Corpse clan. That is what happened just now." Su Yu touched his nose. "This was really unlucky. Since you came from the Celestial Phoenix civilization, you should understand the situation inside, right?" Su Yu asked. Yin Qinshuang nodded solemnly. "Yes, I understand a little. The situation of the Hunters is not looking good. It won't be long before they are completely annihilated." "What did you say?" The two Earth Elders could not keep their composure and exclaimed. Seeing that the battle situation in the Celestial Phoenix civilization was gradually calming down, they had thought that the powerful Hunter Alliance had the absolute upper hand. How could the situation be so terrible? The Hunter Alliance had 2 peak 5-crown Divine Warriors, 10 middle stage Divine Warriors, 30 late stage Divine Warriors, and countless 4-crown Divine Warriors. How could they possibly be completely annihilated? Yun Qinshuang nodded. It is absolutely true. We saw that the situation was not good, so we vowed to break out of the encirclement. Otherwise, we would not have been able to escape. Su Yu's expression changed, and he said solemnly, "Are there many strong fighters in the Corpse Clan? How did the Hunter Alliance end up in such a situation?" Yun Qinshuang shook her head lightly. "There are not many strong fighters in the Corpse Clan, but there is a being who calls himself the Corpse Emperor. He is a descendant of the Path Corpse, and he possesses the treasures left behind by the Path Corpse. He is exceptionally powerful, and when I left, one peak 5-crown divine warrior had fallen, 3 middle-stage divine warriors were captured, and more than half of the early-stage 5-crown divine warriors were killed." Chapter 1996. The two elders sucked in a breath of cold air. They had watched the Hunter Alliance sweep through everything along the way and thought that it would be easy for the Hunter Alliance to hunt down the zombies of the 5-star civilization. Who knew that they would be completely annihilated? Suyu was the most surprised. Others did not know who the Corpse Emperor of the Dao Corpse descendants was, but how could Suyu not know? 20 years had passed since they parted ways with the Dayu civilization, and he had secretly controlled so many advanced civilizations. Now, he was carrying out a one-sided slaughter against a group of 5-crown royal hunters. Hearing the fluctuations gradually weaken, Su Yu's heart sank. They had been away from the Tai Chi civilization for 2 years. If they did not find strong people to fight against the demons in time, the Tai Chi sect might really be destroyed. His eyes flashed rapidly, and after a while he said, "You continue to guard the inter-civilization transportation portal. I will go to the Fairy Phoenix to find out what is going on." No matter what, he could not let the Corpse Emperor succeed. The two elders were shocked. "Master, you can't. If the Dao Corpse descendant is so powerful, wouldn't you be walking into a trap?" So you shook his head. "He is stronger than me, but he was defeated by me twice. This time is no exception." With that, he stepped onto the transportation portal and teleported directly to the Fairy Phoenix. What he saw was an endless sea of zombies. Groups of zombies surrounded the few remaining 4-crown royal hunters. The hunters had already planned to escape, but the transportation portal was already filled with countless zombies. Many of them were their fallen companions who had joined the zombies and attacked them. Although they were strong, the zombies were not afraid of death, and ordinary methods could not kill them. How difficult would it be to get rid of them? Clang Suyu appeared and immediately attracted the attack of a group of zombies. A golden light flashed in his palm, and a golden sword burning with flames and thunder appeared in his hand. This sword was the Golden Flames Forbidden Wood sword that had not been used for a long time. The sword was covered with a layer of boundless karmic fire. The boundless karmic fire was used to destroy evil spirits, and it had an indescribable restraining effect on the zombies. With a flick of his wrist, the long sword swept out in a half-moon shape. Suddenly, a large number of zombies were ignited and turned into ashes in an instant. The boundless karmic fire was extremely combustible. Once other zombies touched it, they would burn continuously until they turned into ashes. A simple sword had wiped out tens of thousands of huge zombies. "Everyone, come over here," Suyu shouted. The hunters who noticed the commotion were wild with joy. Like a drowning man who saw a life-saving straw, they surrounded the place desperately. Suyu, on the other hand, rushed in their direction with his sword in hand. Wherever he passed, the Corpse Clan was annihilated. No matter how strong their cultivation was, they were like paper in the face of the boundless karmic flames. Not long after, the two sides met again. Only 20 hunters managed to make it through, and all of them had despair written all over their faces. "Are you the only ones left in the team of hunters?" Suyu's heart sank. A late stage for Crown Emperor shook his head sadly. "That's not the case, but it's going to happen soon. We are only a small part of them that managed to break out of the encirclement. Most of them are trapped in Mount Wuyin and surrounded by the corpse race. They won't be able to hold on for too long with no reinforcements from the outside and injured internally." Hearing this, Suyu heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, they had not reached the point of complete annihilation. "Give me the coordinates. I'll rush over now," Suyu said. "No, there are groups of high-level zombies there. Just the corpse emperor of the Path Corpse's descendants is extraordinary. Moreover, many of our companions of the Five Crown Emperor have been turned into zombies by them. If you go alone, you'll be like a moth flying into a flame. The Hunter Alliance was a relatively loose organization. Now that they were in trouble, they naturally would not risk their lives to rescue their companions. You guys go first, I'll go take a look. After asking for the coordinates, Suyu suddenly spread out a 3-foot-long pair of wings behind him. With a thump, he disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he had almost crossed the entire 5-star civilization. This was an escape technique that had reached the peak of the Five Crown Emperor. Looking at the whole world, unless the Path Master personally hunted him down, no one could catch him. Mount Ween was the core of the Fairy Phoenix civilization. After it was occupied by the Corpse Emperor, it became the base camp of the Corpse Clan. The Hunter Alliance went straight to the root of the problem and killed their way into Mount Ween. Originally, they had already killed all the high-level Corpse Clan members. Unexpectedly, a Corpse Emperor appeared out of nowhere and defeated them. What was even more hateful was that there was already an ambush enchantment in Mount Ween. After they broke in, they could not come out again. Only the hunters who had not yet entered Mount Ween were lucky enough to escape. Most of the hunters were trapped, surrounded and attacked by the endless stream of zombies. Otherwise, with so many strong fighters, they would not have been able to escape in time. They had been tricked. The sponsor who issued the mission was most likely a living being spy paid by the Corpse Clan. He had sent a large number of their strong fighters to their deaths, and after they died, they would be transformed into the powerful Corpse Clan. Mount Ween was divided into 10 layers. They were sandwiched between the 5th and 6th layers. The outer and inner 4 layers were occupied by the Corpse Clan, and they were attacked from the front and back. The attacks of the Corpse Clan in the outer 4 layers were the fiercest. With the descendants of the Dao Corpse as the lead, they cooperated with the former master of the Fairy Phoenix civilization to launch a fierce attack. Many members of the Hunter Alliance could only defend coolly. The inner 4 layers were equally serious. Their fallen comrades had turned into the Corpse Clan and were attacking them. Among them was the fallen 5 Crown Emperor Peak Hunter. The internal and external troubles put the hunters in a precarious situation. Hunter King, be careful. If this continues, we will all become the Corpse Clan. A mid-stage 5 Crown Emperor powerhouse stuck close to the only remaining peak 5 Crown Emperor powerhouse amongst them. Hunter King was the title of 5 Crown Emperor Peak Fighter. Hunter King was 25 meters tall and was a foreign race with bulging muscles. However, his body was covered in wounds, and traces of corpse energy were being forced out of his wounds. He had to split his attention to deal with the enemy and also suppress the troublesome corpse energy. His situation was even more difficult. Hunter King's eyes were filled with despair. What else can we do? Fight to the death. Before you die, destroy your own body. Don't let the Corpse Clan have their way. The 5 Crown Emperor middle stage fighter gritted his teeth and could only fight in despair. Right at this moment, there was a sudden movement in the outer 4 layers. A large number of Corpse Clan started to burn without warning, and they spread to each other very quickly. In the blink of an eye, a large empty space was burned in the outer 3 layers. Have our escaped brothers returned to rescue us? Many hunters were indescribably excited. Hunter King shook his head deeply. No, it's the boundless karmic flames. Hiss, the legendary, evil, destroying divine fire. Boundless karmic flames? Heavens, this is the void fire that even the Pathmasters can only dream of. The speaker was excited. Hunter King's expression was solemn. So what if you have the boundless karmic flames? In front of the Path Corpse's descendants, the boundless karmic flames may not be able to do anything. The movement behind them also caught the attention of the Corpse Clan. Looking behind them, their expressions changed, and they all avoided the burning Corpse Clan comrades. A white-haired Corpse Clan member with a crown on his head glared angrily, but there was no one around. The familiar boundless karmic flames, the familiar aura. The Corpse Emperor's tone was low, his eyes cold. How could he forget that he was almost burned to death by Isuyu's boundless karmic flames in the Dayu Empire? How could he forget Su Yu's painstaking aura? But why couldn't he sense his existence? The rest of the Corpse Clan had not even sensed the aura of living creatures. Now that he was distracted, the Hunter King seized the opportunity and sent him flying. "Break out!" The Hunter King roared, leading the hunters behind him to break out of the encirclement. The Corpse Emperor's face fell, and he shouted, "Stop them!" Killing them was only a matter of time, as long as they did not escape the enchantment of Mount Wuyin. However, just as they were about to stop them, a large amount of boundless karmic flames suddenly came from another direction, burning a large area of the Corpse Clan in an instant. The pressure on the hunters was relieved once again, and their eyes were filled with joy as they frantically tried to break out of the encirclement. The Corpse Emperor was shocked and angry. He searched carefully, but couldn't find Su Yu at all. He had just refocused his attention on the hunters when a large amount of boundless karmic flames appeared from another direction. Because the encirclement of the Corpse Clan was too densely packed, a large number of them died, directly burning a path for the hunters. The Hunter King finally showed a glimmer of hope. He did not know what kind of magical power that mysterious expert had, but he could strike without anyone noticing, plunging the Corpse Clan into chaos. With his help, the hunters broke out of the encirclement with ease, escaping all the way from the 5th zone to the 8th zone. The Corpse Emperor roared angrily, temporarily ignoring the person who had released the boundless karmic flames. He waved the pitch-black bead in his palm and smashed it towards the Hunter King. Inside the pitch-black bead, an astonishing corpse energy was released. When it shone on the bodies of living creatures, the creatures were in so much pain that they wished they were dead. Even someone as strong as the Hunter King found it difficult to resist. His whole body was steaming with a rich vitality, which was a sign that his life was rapidly depleting. This was the Tao Corpse Divine Bead, which could only be used on living creatures. The Hunter King had been killed by the terrifying black light of the Tao Corpse Divine Bead. The Hunter King had no choice but to lead his people to retreat again. With this Tao Corpse Divine Bead, they had no way of contending against it. However, right at that moment, a dazzling relic that emitted an astonishing Buddha's light suddenly floated in the sky. Under the illumination of the Buddha's light, the bodies of the Corpse Clan were steaming with a deathly aura, and their bodies were melting continuously. In terms of effect, it was more than 10 times stronger than the boundless karmic flames. Most importantly, the Buddha nature within this Buddha relic was far superior to the Tao Corpse Divine Bead, and it suppressed the pitch-black light that it emitted. The hunters who were retreating were overjoyed, and they took the opportunity to attack. Under the illumination of the Buddha relic, the Corpse Clan could not resist at all. They could be destroyed with a single blow. Even the Corpse Emperor was struggling in pain under the illumination of the Buddha relic. The Hunter King's eyes flashed, and a chain of rules shot out from his palm, bombarding the Corpse Emperor's body in an instant. An ordinary 4-crowned emperor should have been penetrated by the chain of rules at that moment. However, the Corpse Emperor's body was extremely hard. With a dull thud, he was only blasted out of Mount Wuyin. His body did not suffer too much damage. The Hunter King looked around at the defenseless Corpse Clan and yelled, "Senior, how long can this Buddha relic last?" Faintly, an old voice floated over. "Enough for you to wipe out all the Corpse Clan." Su Yu turned into a speck of dust, secretly praising the Hunter King for his boldness. An ordinary hunter should be thinking of taking the opportunity to escape at that moment. However, the Hunter King changed his mind and decided to take the opportunity to annihilate the Corpse Clan first. "Thank you." The Hunter King's face was filled with a cold divine light. He was most afraid of the Tao Corpse Divine Bead. If it was suppressed, the Corpse Clan in front of him would not be a problem. Chapter 1997. Brothers, kill the Corpse Clan. The Hunter King snorted coldly and led the hunters to fight back. The hunters who wanted to escape, seeing the mysterious strong man holding the line, became more confident and joined in the fight. Wherever the Buddha bead shone, the hunters were invincible. The Corpse Emperor climbed up with difficulty and looked at the Buddha bead relic with fear in his eyes. The faceless Buddha relic of the Path Master. "Su Yu, it's you." The familiar boundless karmic flames, the familiar aura, and a unique Buddha relic. There was no other person in the world except Su Yu. How did he meet Su Yu again? Moreover, he attacked at the most critical moment to disrupt his plan. The hunters did not care about the Corpse Emperor's roar. Without the suppression of the Tao Corpse Divine Bead, this descendant of the Tao Corpse was not as powerful. Under the counterattack of the powerful hunters, the Corpse Clan, which had an absolute advantage just now, was destroyed. In just a short while, all the Corpse Clan and the outer four layers were wiped out. The Corpse Emperor's eyes were wide open, and he could not help but roar. Su Yu, was he really his old enemy? Why did he always appear when he was successful? The hunters rushed out of Mount Wuyin and could no longer do anything to them. With deep resentment, the Corpse Emperor led the strong men of the Corpse Clan and fled angrily. Before leaving, he put away the Tao Corpse Divine Bead and abandoned the corpse army that he had painstakingly transformed. The dust that Su Yu had turned into landed on the shoulder of a powerful corpse beside him. The Corpse Emperor ran all the way to another palace full of powerful Corpse Clan members. Unlike other palaces, this one was full of vitality, and there were creatures from the Fairy Phoenix civilization here. The Corpse Monarch quickly entered the palace and arrived at a quiet and secluded courtyard. Lan Yu was leisurely mixing flower wine when she saw the Corpse Emperor coming in with a flustered expression. Her eyes were filled with worry. What happened? Su Yu is here, the Corpse Emperor said through gritted teeth. Patter. The flower wine in Lan Yu's hand suddenly slipped out of her hand and fell to the ground with a thud, breaking into pieces of jade. She clenched her fists, her pretty face pale, and her whole body trembled. Why? Why did he appear again when we finally settled down? Su Yu had already become his nightmare. Every time she felt that she had become the supreme concubine of the Corpse Emperor, Su Yu would appear unexpectedly and chase her away. But this time, it shouldn't be, right? Corpse Emperor, with our current resources, we don't have to be afraid even if there are 100 Su Yu, right? Lan Yu comforted herself. The Corpse Emperor lowered his head and clenched his fists tightly. He then said in a deep voice, Pack your things and get ready to escape. Su Yu has already helped the hunters escape, so we have no way out. Lan Yu's beautiful face was defeated. She seemed to be crying and laughing with hatred. I knew it. Wherever he is, there will be no good news. The Corpse Emperor said, Don't speak anymore. Take everything that can be taken away. Lan Yu came back to her senses and said sadly, The things that can be brought are all in the storage ring, but the Jade Spring marrow change that you brewed for me after searching the entire Immortal Phoenix civilization's secret treasures is still in the final stage of brewing, so it can't be moved. Otherwise, if there is even the slightest bit of movement, everything will be destroyed. Hearing this, the Corpse Monarch's eyes flashed with deep regret. The Jade Spring marrow change was an ancient secret medicine that he had found in the Immortal Phoenix civilization, and it had nature-defying effects. It allowed Lan Yu, who is only a bronze overlord, to ascend to the heavens and become a divine warrior of heaven and earth. For this, the Corpse Monarch did not hesitate to search the entire Immortal Phoenix civilization and let the entire civilization fall into a state of absolute exhaustion to brew this thing. After 10 years of brewing, it would be successful in another 1 or 2 months. Now that it was in the final stage, even the slightest vibration could destroy it, let alone transfer it to the space decontamination device, which would destroy it in an instant. Forget it. We will find another civilization and brew it for you again. The Corpse Emperor comforted her. Losing a pot of marrow change is better than losing a life. Lan Yu was angry and deeply exhausted. She said, Corpse Emperor, why do we have to flee so pathetically every time we meet Su Yu? The Corpse Emperor wanted to ask this question too. In the Sea of Constellations, his corpse army was taken away by Su Yu. In the Du Empire, he was forced into a corner by Su Yu and almost died. Now, he was a 5-star civilization master and was forced to retreat by Su Yu. Why was this happening? At this moment, the Corpse Emperor was speechless and sorrowful. He was a hero, but why was he suppressed in front of Su Yu? Do you want to know the answer? Suddenly, Suyu's voice rang out in the empty room. Ah, the voice that Lan Yu could not forget even in her dreams appeared in her ears, causing her to scream and hide behind the corpse emperor. The corpse emperor's face changed drastically. He stared at the surroundings, his blood-red eyes gloomy. "Come out if you can." "All right." Suddenly, a speck of dust flew from the corpse emperor's shoulder to the ground, and then quickly folded into a human figure. Although they had not seen each other for 20 years, they still recognized Suyu's face at a glance. "How have you been, you two?" Suyu held the golden crystal sword in his hand, and layers of dangerous, limitless karmic flames burned. Speaking of which, Suyu also felt that it was incredible. He and these two people were really fated to meet each other, often coincidentally. The corpse emperor's eyes flashed, and he immediately turned into a white shadow, carrying with him a roaring corpse energy, and attacked. Suyu smiled lightly, stamped his feet on the ground, and rose into the air. While still in the air, he transformed into a giant black dragon. With a sweep of his huge dragon tail, the corpse emperor was directly sent flying out of the palace. The corpse emperor looked shocked. Your strength is comparable to the early stage of the martial emperor realm." Suyu, who had transformed into a black dragon, smiled faintly, holding the golden flames forbidden with sword in his dragon claws, and slashed down from above. A flame that pierced through the sky, and the earth whistled through the sky above the palace. The corpse emperor's face changed dramatically, and he roared, "Stop him!" Then, he grabbed Lan Yu and quickly escaped. Several transformed five-crown martial emperor corpse clan members attacked Suyu expressionlessly. Suyu stared in the direction where the corpse emperor escaped, frowning slightly. Every time they met, the corpse emperor was stronger than before, and he was a threat. However, the five-crown martial emperor corpse clan members rushed over, and he could not fight them head-on. He used the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole to teleport them to Mount Wuyin. With the restraint of the Buddha's Sarira and the powerful encirclement of the Hunter Alliance, several zombies were immediately killed. Suyu's heart moved, and he returned to the palace. He had heard clearly that the corpse emperor had used the resources of the entire five-star civilization to brew a pot of jade spring marrow-changing. As the master of the Tai Chi civilization, Suyu knew how terrifying the resources of the entire five-star civilization were. The spiritual liquid brewed from so many resources was probably a rare medicine in the world. After searching for a while, he stopped in front of a secret room in the palace. With his transparent eye, he scanned the room and found that there was a huge boiler that was 10 feet tall. A whole pot of spiritual liquid was quietly brewing inside. The power contained in the spiritual liquid was faintly close to the mysterious power that spread out after opening the door to the divine warrior of heaven and earth. So he was slightly delighted. If he could absorb the power within, he would have no difficulty breaking through to become a three-crown martial emperor. He waited patiently outside the secret room. There were too many zombies in the Fairy Phoenix. With the speed of the Hunter Alliance, it would take at least 3 months to completely eliminate them. So there was no need to worry about them suddenly discovering this place and stealing the Jade Spring marrow-changing. 2 months later, the spiritual liquid in the pot had been brewed from the original pot to a ball the size of a fist. Its entire body was purplish-green, like a gel, full of elasticity. Suyu opened the secret room and touched it with his tentacles. The spiritual liquid in the gel suddenly rolled like spring water, exceptionally beautiful. However, what was even more shocking was the terrifying power contained within. Suyu spread it out on his palm and absorbed the energy within it bit by bit. Just as he absorbed a bit, Suyu was surprised to find that a bit of energy was comparable to a whole 9-yin elixir. The effect was really too shocking. Ha! The corpse emperor is my lucky star, always giving me endless benefits. Suyu could not help but laugh, seizing the time to absorb the energy within. Under his crazy absorption, the gel slowly shriveled and shrank. A month later, suddenly, a gale blew around Suyu, and the color of the sky changed. A wave of desolate energy gushed out from the palace, like a volcano that had been suppressed for a long time could not help but erupt after its energy had reached a full state. This is the feeling of a middle-stage, three-crown martial emperor. Suyu felt stronger than he had ever felt. His desolate energy was more than 5 times stronger than before. The same move would have an earth-shattering change in its power. Not bad. The effects of a Jade Spring Marrow change had far exceeded expectations. Not only did it allow Suyu to break through to the middle stage three-crown martial emperor, but it also allowed him to break through to the middle stage three-crown martial emperor in one go. His cultivation level had improved by leaps and bounds. With his current overall strength, it would be difficult for early-stage four-crown martial emperors to contend with him. Only middle-stage four-crown martial emperors might be difficult to deal with, but it would be difficult for them to threaten his safety. This trip to the Fairy Phoenix was definitely not in vain. Taking a deep breath and adjusting his state, Suyu released his soul to observe the situation of the Fairy Phoenix. The great battle at Mount Wuyin had reached its final stage. The Hunter King and a few other middle-stage five-crown martial emperors had forcefully killed another Hunter King who had transformed into a corpse. The rest of the hunters were scattered throughout the entire Fairy Phoenix civilization, destroying all the corpses in the civilization with the momentum of the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. Seeing that Mount Wuyin no longer needed the suppression of the Pathmaster's Buddhist relic, the dust that Suyu had turned into silently stored it away. The hunters who had just finished their battle were immediately startled. That elusive senior had appeared. Senior's great kindness, the Hunter Alliance will never forget. The Hunter King bowed to the sky, his heart filled with gratitude. If this senior had not used the Buddhist relic to break the divine pearl of the descendants of the Path Corpse, they would have become corpses by now. They had to repay the kindness of saving their lives. Exterminating the Corpse Clan is everyone's responsibility. I just happened to meet you and found that you were trapped by the Corpse Clan, so I did what I could. A wispy old voice floated in the air. The Hunter King and the group of five-crown martial emperors were shocked. The voice was clearly right in front of them, but they could not detect its presence. Either the other party was a space emperor, or he was a pathmaster who could transform into a law. In comparison, the latter was more likely. After all, the space emperor who achieved the path was only a legend. Chapter 1998. The King Hunter had a sincere expression, but he had other thoughts. How many of those who were willing to join the Hunter Alliance and run around to complete the bounties had a strong background? If they really had a strong background, they would not end up like this. Because of this, the hunters valued their connections more than ordinary people. Any useful connections will be treasured. Although the senior in front of them did not attack, he could casually use the boundless karma flames and the Tao Lord's Buddhist relic. It was very likely that he was a powerful Tao Lord. What was even rarer was that this powerful Tao Lord was willing to help them. It could be seen that he was a kind Tao Lord. How could they miss this opportunity? That was why the King Hunter said those sincere words. The only thing they were worried about was how they could help the Tao Lord. What do I need the help of you juniors? Sure enough, the Pathmaster's chuckle resounded from the darkness. The hunters smiled bitterly in their hearts. As expected, disappointment flashed across the King Hunter's eyes. It was the tragedy of being weak. They could not make friends even if they met the Tao Lord. However, if you really want to, I have a new disciple who has just become the Tai Chi sect master. He might have some difficulties and needs help. I have to go to the 9-star civilization on official business and can't spare any time. If you can help him, it will be a great help to me. Hearing this, the hunters were overjoyed. The King Hunter said in a deep voice, "Senior, don't worry. We will go to the Tai Chi civilization right now and help your disciple. If that's the case, I'll have to trouble you." The voice said, "I came in a hurry and don't have anything that an emperor needs. You could just use these." After saying that, it suddenly started raining. However, it was not ordinary rain. It was rain that contained grand beginning chi. The King Hunter was shocked. Grand beginning chi. Grand beginning chi was extremely useful for them to condense laws. For the Tao Lord, it had an even more amazing effect. It was said that the Tao Lord could evolve the grand beginning chi into a part of his own cultivation. It was extremely precious. If he sold the grand beginning chi to the Tao Lord, he could sell it for a shocking price. The king hunter was actually pouring the grand beginning chi in large amounts. The group of king hunters was shocked, and they started to collect the items. After a while, the heavy rain stopped, and every hunter's face lit up with joy. Just the primordial rain of chi alone made their trip worthwhile, not to mention the fact that they were working for the disciple of this Taoist master. They might even be able to gain the favor of this Taoist master in the future. Thank you, Senior. Hee. I'll leave my disciple to you for the time being. I'll be going now. Farewell, Senior. After he left for a long time, the Hunter King said, "Speed up and clean up the local corpse race. Don't leave a single one alive. Then head to the Taiji civilization immediately." I remembered that the Primal Chaos civilization is an unknown bottom-tier civilization, right? The Taiji civilization did not even have the qualifications to participate in the Ecliptic Temple Conference. Now that another 100 years have passed, I wonder if they can participate in the Ecliptic Temple Conference again. When it comes to the Zodiac Temple, it's not something that hunters like us can help with. Let's go to the Primal Chaos civilization to take a look first. Maybe their civilization is too backward, and they need our help to modify it. Suyu left quietly and returned to the Demon Moon civilization. Just as he appeared in the inter-civilization teleportation formation, 3 gusts of wind blew at him. "It's me," Suyu reminded them, and the 3 gusts of wind stopped abruptly. The surprised voices of the 2 Earth Elders followed. "Finally, the Master is safe and sound. We were so worried. It would be strange if they were not worried." Suyu had been gone for 3 months without any news, and the war in the Fairy Phoenix civilization had erupted again. With the strength of the Master, it was difficult for him to be safe and sound. Now that he was back, they could finally put their hearts at ease. Suyu nodded and asked, "Did a white-haired corpse and a human woman leave?" Shaking their heads, the 2 Earth Elders indicated that they had not seen them. Suyu frowned. If that was the case, the Corpse Emperor and Lan Yu had escaped by piloting a meteorite. If that was the case, it would be difficult to find their traces. "Master, are there any survivors among the hunters?" The 2 Earth Elders asked. According to their expectations, there should not be many hunters left. 2 months ago, the fluctuations of the large-scale battle had completely stopped. It should be the hunters' final struggle before death. Let's go back to the faction first. Suyu wanted to rush back before the hunters arrived at the Taiji civilization. What about the 2 of them? The Earth Elders pointed at Yin Qinshuang and the young girl. Suyu glanced at them and said, "Bring them back together." A year later, at the Taiji faction, 3 years had passed since they had left. Everything in the main city of the Taiji faction was the same as before. Suyu and the others heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that the human demon had not attacked yet, but that was all on the surface. Sweeping his gaze across the Taiji faction, a gloomy and oppressive atmosphere assaulted his senses. The disciples were either in a hurry or frowning. The Yin-Yang elders did not attend to their duties. They gathered in groups of 2 or 3 and chatted with each other, their faces full of worry. Even some of the Earth Elders were not in the mood to maintain the faction. They were running around, exchanging treasures, talismans, and other items. Even the Discipline Peak, which used to be the most lively, was gloomy at the moment. The law enforcers of the Discipline Peak were either in seclusion or busy crafting artifacts. Apart from that, the entire city of the Taiji faction was also inexplicably oppressive. The market that used to be bustling in Japan was now packed with people. Even the true Jade Hall, which used to be deserted, was now crowded. Some of the more wealthy people took out their life savings to purchase items that they normally could not use. The most popular was the elixir store. All kinds of mainstream elixirs that were used daily were almost out of stock. Even if they were sold at 10 times the usual price, there would still be martial artists who would buy them. The strange scene made Suyu frown slightly. He had been away for 3 years. What had happened to cause the people to panic? Appearing in the Taiji faction, The first person to sense his presence was Mo Xiaochai. Her usually playful face was filled with weariness. She barely managed to pull herself together and said, "You are finally back." Soon after, the old woman and the group of Earth Elders rushed back. But when they looked behind Su Yu and saw that there was no one else besides the two unfamiliar women, their eyes dimmed. It seemed like the faction master's plan to find a hunter had failed. To be exact, they did not have much hope in the first place. Whether or not they could find a hunter was one thing, and whether or not they could get them to help was another. Returning empty-handed was not surprising to most people. "Has the human demon appeared?" Su Yu asked. Mo Xiaochai shook her head. Everyone is in a state of panic. Could the news of the human demon have spread? Su Yu's face turned cold. Who spread it? He had repeatedly ordered that only the higher-ups knew about the human demon, and that it was not to be spread. This was to prevent the current turmoil. But in the end, the news has indeed spread, but it was not us. Mo Xiaochai's face was filled with annoyance and helplessness. It was the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Su Yu was not surprised to hear that it was the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. With the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce's all-pervasive intelligence network, it was not difficult for them to find out about the appearance of the human demon. Why are they doing this? The two Earth Elders were puzzled. Su did not speak. He looked at the booming market with a cold glint in his eyes. How much of this market was controlled by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce in secret? Now that the prices of goods had skyrocketed and there were so many buyers, was this what the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce was looking forward to? Taking advantage of the chaos to plunder money and then run away before the Taiji civilization was destroyed? This kind of business trick was too simple. Spreading the news is only the first step. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce has also sent strong men to negotiate with us. Mo Xiaochai did not know whether she should be happy or worried. Su Yu muttered, "It is a negotiation. They will deal with the human demon, and we will pay a certain price." Mo Xiaochai knew Su Yu's wisdom, so she was not surprised that he could guess it. She said yes. The people of the Taiji faction should be very excited that a strong man was willing to take action. There was only one reason why they were so worried. The price demanded by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce was extremely high, and they could not afford it. Su Yu did not even bother to ask about the conditions of their negotiation. He said, "Now open the Taiji faction's treasury and distribute the daily necessities at a fair price to stabilize the prices of goods." If this continued, the wealth of the martial artists of the entire Taiji civilization would be emptied by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Even if the human demon incident was settled, the Taiji civilization would fall into a long period of poverty. Everyone was surprised. Mo Xiaochai's face tightened. She said, "No matter how many things there are in the Taiji faction's treasury, it cannot withstand the long-term consumption of the entire Taiji civilization. Can it?" Su Yu shook his head. "There is no need for a long time. Just 1 month is enough to make the profiteers of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce lose everything." More than 90% of the current prices were hyped up. Su Yu did not need to investigate in detail to confirm that before the prices of goods rose sharply, the people of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce must have stockpiled goods at a higher price than usual, causing the current shortage of goods in the entire market. Because of the shortage, an ordinary elixir could be sold at 10 times the usual price, and an ordinary talisman could be sold at 7 or 8 times the usual price. As long as the Taiji faction sold the daily necessities at the usual price, the profiteers of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce would not dare to sell the goods in their hands. This was because their purchase price would certainly be higher than usual. If they dared to sell, they would lose as much as they sold. As long as the Taiji faction persisted for more than 1 month, a new batch of daily necessities would be produced continuously and sent to the market, filling up the shortage of goods again. At that time, all the goods that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had stockpiled would be wasted. They would either stay in their hands and rot, or they would be sold at a loss. It could be said that this was a war without the smoke of gunpowder. On one side was the Taiji faction of 5-star civilization, and on the other side was the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. But with our resources, we can't hold out for a month. Mo Xiaochai shook her head. She was well aware of the situation in the Taiji faction's treasury. Besides, I don't quite understand why you want to open up the Taiji faction's treasury. Why don't we sell some goods at a higher price and earn a lot of divine stones to replenish the resources of the Taiji faction? Mo Xiaochai's idea was what most people were thinking. Suyu sighed helplessly. It was such a simple logic. Did it need any explanation? Chapter 1999. Mo Xiaochai was annoyed. Who are you talking about? You, of course. Yin Qinshuang felt that she was on equal footing with Suyu and was not afraid of his subordinates. Let me ask you, after the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce empties the martial artists of their wealth, will they have the money to buy things in the future? If they don't have money, then so be it. What does that have to do with us? Mo Xiaochai was unconcerned. That's how naive you are. Let me ask you, if the people of the Tai Chi faction have no money, how will they buy the goods in the market? If no one buys the goods, will the shops close down? If the shops close down, will the rich owners take their wealth and leave the Tai Chi civilization to develop in other prosperous civilizations? If the owners leave on a large scale, will the businesses fall into depression? After the businesses fall into depression, no one will want the treasures excavated by the martial artists, and no one will buy the daily necessities refined by them. They will fall into a desperate situation. What will they do to survive? Burn, kill, rob, plunder. The Tai Chi civilization is in chaos, and resources are scarce. What will the Tai Chi faction rely on to accumulate resources? Your foundation will gradually decrease until you have nothing left. What will you use to recruit new disciples then? Without new disciples, how long can the Tai Chi faction exist? The crowd was disdainful at first, but gradually, their expressions became more and more serious. Mo Xiaochai was deep in thought. What she said made too much sense. It seemed that the martial artists being extorted had nothing to do with the Tai Chi faction, but the negative effects would gradually appear in the future, and the Tai Chi civilization would enter a vicious cycle. Perhaps the prosperous Tai Chi civilization would really fall into a state of decline. For a moment, everyone was on high alert, wary of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Yin Qinshuang finished speaking in one breath, then said disdainfully, I finally understand how you became the master of the Tai Chi faction. Being associated with a bunch of pigs, it would be difficult for you not to be the master. Suyu calmly shook his head. They just haven't come into contact with the dangers of the business world. Now, does anyone have any objections to opening the Tai Chi faction's treasury? The old woman said, I wholeheartedly agree. We must not let the maggots of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce succeed. The Earth Elders also agreed. Only after Yin Qinshuang's explanation did they realize the great danger hidden in the price fluctuations this time. Mo Xiaochai also agreed. She said, It's just that our Tai Chi sect's heritage can only last for 20 days. I'm afraid that it will be very difficult for us to last for a month. At that time, our Tai Chi sect's treasury will be completely exhausted, and we won't be able to suppress the prices of goods. Instead, we will fall into an even worse situation. So you nodded. You're right, but you don't have to worry about the resources. I'll contact a group of people right now, and they'll try their best to deliver the resources you need. I believe it won't be difficult to hold on for a month. The upper echelons of the Taiji sect came to a consensus. Several hours later, they used the mansions of the Dark Shadow Elders as temporary shops to sell daily necessities, including pills, talismans, materials, and so on. Thanks to the Taiji sect's many years of heritage, they had all kinds of resources. They completely satisfied the needs of the Taiji sect's civilization. Originally, it was difficult for martial artists to obtain a medicinal pill even if they had 1,000 taels of gold. Suddenly knowing that the Tai Chi sect had opened the treasury and was selling it at the usual low price, who would still buy it in the market? All of them went to the residences of the Yin Yang elders to buy them. For a time, Elder Yin Yang's mansion was packed to the point of bursting. In front of a mansion, there were easily over 1 million creatures, and there was still an unending stream of people gathering. Because of this, the Yin Yang elders were extremely busy, and they mobilized their own disciples to help with the sales. In order to prevent the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce from hiring people to buy the Taiji sect's resources wantonly, Suyu ordered the implementation of a numbering system. Everyone could only buy once a day based on their own number. Moreover, the number of pills sold at once was limited to the amount used for that day. Because of this, the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce was at its wit's end. In a restaurant with few people, a group of people was gathered in a private room. The people present were all famous merchants of the Taiji civilization. Among them were the bosses of the elixirs, the overlords of the wood-based materials industry, and the number one person in the talisman industry. The tables in front of them were filled with delicacies that ordinary people could only dream of. However, at the moment, their faces were gloomy, and they had no appetite at all. Why don't you say something? After all, this is the 108th gathering of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce's Taiji Civilization branch. The one who spoke was the boss of the elixirs, Yao Bailing. The overlord of the wood-based materials industry, Xiao Qian, laughed self-deprecatingly. I'd rather not have this gathering. In order to hide their identities, they usually did not gather, pretending that they did not know each other. Now, they had no choice but to gather because the Taiji sect master had returned. Most importantly, not only had he returned, but he had also boldly opened up the Taiji sect's treasury. How can you still keep your composure? The number one person in the talisman industry, Miss Bao, slammed the table angrily. Do you know that I've spent 3 trillion to buy low-level and mid-level talismans without restraint? Currently, I've sold less than 30 billion. If I can't sell the rest, I can only die. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce would not forgive him for such a huge loss. Xiao Qian laughed bitterly. You only spent 3 trillion. Do you know that I invested 10 trillion divine stones? Of which 3 trillion was borrowed from usury from the black market. Now, I've only sold them for 100 billion. If the rest is wasted in my hands, my wife and I will be treated as slaves in the black market to pay off our debts. Yao Bailing's expression was calm as she casually said, My medicinal pill business, because the amount of medicinal pills is too large for the sake of this hype, I accumulated more than 100 trillion. Now, I haven't even gotten back 100 million godstones. If you guys are so anxious when I burn to death, Xiao Qian and Miss Bao understood what Yao Bailing was implying. They asked in unison, Brother Yao, do you have any good ideas? Yao Bailing shook his head. With the boldness and wisdom of the new Taiji sect master, what good ideas can we have now? I'm afraid that he can see through any plan with a glance. Hearing this, Xiao Qian and Miss Bao were greatly disappointed. Xiao Qian looked regretful. I was too careless. I thought that the new sect master was just a brat who had cultivated for less than 100 years. Coincidentally, the Taiji civilization encountered a calamity like the humans and demons, so I thought of making a fortune. Who knew that the new sect master was not only extremely intelligent, but he was also extremely bold. Opening up the Taiji sect foundation for hundreds of millions of years is something that none of the previous sect masters dared to do. Miss Bao thumped her chest and sighed. If we are not careful, we might really fall into his hands. Fall? That might not be the case. Yao Bailing said with a faint smile. Although I don't have any good ideas, I still have an open plan. Xiao Qian and Miss Bao said, Since we're already here, let's not hide it anymore. If you have any ideas, tell us quickly so that we can discuss them together. Yao Bailing smiled confidently. It's very simple. We are merchants, so we should naturally do what merchants should do. Exchange of equal value. Taiji faction. 5 days had passed since the opening of the Taiji faction's treasury. A group of higher-ups of the Taiji faction was in the Taiji palace, listening to the Yingyang elders' survey of the market prices. The price of the Bodhi elixir has dropped from its peak of 300 divine stones to 150. The price of the Swift Wind talisman has dropped from its peak of 1,000 divine stones to 700 divine stones. So you listened patiently. After a long while, he said, there are only 10,000 types of goods that have dropped in price and 90,000 types of goods that have not dropped in price. In other words, the Taiji civilization's market has been infiltrated by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. More than 90% of our economic lifelines have been secretly controlled by someone. His words made the old woman and the Earth Elders feel embarrassed. And Mo Shaochai said, "It's all because of that old fellow, the former faction master, who advocated attracting merchants from the outside world and gave them preferential treatment. That allowed many people from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce to take advantage of the loopholes. He was already dead, so it was meaningless to pursue his responsibility. The former faction master's actions could not be said to be wrong. At least, he had strengthened the prosperity of the Taiji civilization. However, this prosperity was only an illusion. Just like now, when the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce wanted to cause trouble, it brought about devastating destruction to the Taiji civilization. The disadvantages outweighed the advantages. The former faction master's decision in this regard had seriously lacked consideration. All right, remember all the names of these people who maintain the high prices, so you said calmly. Seeing the dangers of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, everyone agreed. If they survived this ordeal, they would definitely uproot the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Just as their discussion reached a critical point, a young elder came to report. Reporting to the faction master, the representative of the market, Yao Bailing, has come to see the faction master. I won't see him, Su Yu said without hesitation. If a mere merchant could see the faction master whenever he wanted, it would make others look down on the faction master's abilities. It would also make the living creatures of the Taiji civilization doubt the faction's ability to maintain the prices of goods. Otherwise, why would he need to see the representative of the market? The young elder hesitated. Yao Bailing said that it is regarding the human demon and wants to make a deal with the faction master. There's no need to discuss it. Tell Yao Bailing to immediately restore the elixir prices to normal levels, and we will let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, get lost immediately. So you did not need to use his brain to know what Yao Bailing wanted to talk about. Using the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce to deal with the human demon as a condition in exchange for the Taiji civilization stopping opening the treasury. Yao Bailing probably felt that this was an overt plot, and Su Yu had to accept it regardless of whether he wanted to or not. He had to make a choice. Unfortunately, Su Yu had a third choice. Outside the Taiji faction in the waiting room. Under the respectful gazes of a few Taiji faction disciples, Yao Bailing proudly tasted his tea. The young elder, who was in charge of receiving them, had a gentle and even humble attitude. Yao Bailing was an important figure that he could never hope to reach. Now, he even had the right to speak to the Taiji faction on equal terms. Shopkeeper Yao, I wonder if what you said about dealing with the human demon is true. Yao Bailing looked at him indifferently, calmly saying, "These matters are not for a young elder like you to ask, right?" The young elder's expression turned stiff, and he shut his mouth in embarrassment. Although he was a little unhappy that Yao Bailing had thrown away his pride, with Yao Bailing's current status, he could not do anything about it. He could only sit alone resentfully, his expression respectful, not daring to offend Yao Bailing. Suddenly, the disciple who had gone to report returned. Yao Bailing was holding a contract that she had drafted calmly. She said leisurely, "Your faction master must have made a decision. Lead the way." Chapter 2000. Yao Bailing glanced at him and said indifferently, "What do you think?" The reporting disciple said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "My words carry little weight, and I dare not speak carelessly. I can only pass on the sect master's words." The sect master said that you have two choices. First, immediately restore the pill to its original price and let bygones be bygones. Second, if you're unwilling, immediately scram. Impudent. Yao Bailing wasn't angry, but he was still imposing. The disciple's expression was calm. "Shopkeeper Yao, what's the point of being angry at a disciple like me? I'm just repeating the sect leader's words. Shopkeeper Yao, please make your own choice." Yao Bailing was furious and said, "Could it be that your sect master has no foresight? I'm here to help you deal with the human devil." The disciple did not say a word and quietly waited for Yao Bailing's reply. The young elder who had been bullied was secretly gloating. In the end, the sect master was still the best. He had been so arrogant and dignified, but in the end, he didn't even have the right to see the sect master. How ironic. Now that he understood the sect master's attitude towards him, Elder Yin and Yang was filled with confidence. He put on a fake smile and said, "Manager Medicine, our Tai Chi sect's guest hall doesn't lack tea. Take your time to think about it. I guarantee you'll drink your fill." Hearing Zhun Zhun's mockery, Yao Bailing became even more furious. It was a plan that was almost in the bag, but before he could say a word, he was ordered to scram. To think that he had acted mysterious in front of his colleagues, acting as if he had a card up his sleeve. Now, he didn't know how to explain it when he went back. Humph, don't be too pleased with yourself. This is just the beginning. I don't believe that your Tai Chi sect can last until the end. Yao Bailing felt deflated. She swung her sleeves and left. Elder Yin Yang said eccentrically, "Manager Medicine, I won't see you out. I won't see you out." Seeing Yao Bailing leave, the Yin Yang elder wiped away the smile on his face and revealed a look of hatred and disdain. "Tui, who do you think you are?" Under the propaganda of the Tai Chi sect, everyone from the disciples to Elder Tian had a fundamental understanding of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. His disgust for them was not just a little. However, just as Yao Bailing had said, it was still unknown whether the Tai Chi sect would be able to last until the end. Another 5 days passed. When the upper echelons of the Tai Chi sect met, the atmosphere was much more pessimistic than 5 days ago. There is less than half of the inventory left, and less than 20% of the prices in the market have returned to normal. 80% of the prices are still high. Many shops would rather close temporarily than lower their prices. Hearing the conclusion, the group of Earth Elders was deeply worried. The invisible confrontation had been going on for a full 10 days, but the prices in the market showed no signs of dropping. The new batch of daily necessities would need at least 20 days to enter the market and impact the current market price. Now, the danger was apparent. "What's the report from the people you sent out?" Suyu asked calmly. Apart from the group of people that Suyu had secretly contacted, he had also sent a large number of Yin-Yang elders and tens of thousands of disciples to the nearby civilizations to purchase daily necessities. Due to time constraints, they were destined to not be able to travel to civilizations that were too far away. They could only search nearby. Clan leader, according to the information we received, less than 10% of the people found anything, and they were all found in the desolate areas that have yet to reach the level of a star civilization. In total, it's less than what the Taiji civilization consumes in a day. A day's consumption was a drop in the bucket. As for the other people, the daily necessities of the civilizations they went to were secretly purchased by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce as early as a year ago. They are still purchasing them at a high price. Basically, they have snatched all the new resources that enter the market. In other words, the majority of the people had gained nothing. Everyone's hearts sank slowly. We can only hold on for another 10 days at most. After 10 days, the entire treasury of the Taiji faction will be used up. By then, if we can't suppress the prices in the market, I'm afraid the daily consumption of the Taiji faction won't be enough, the old woman elder said in a low voice. Right now, they were at a critical juncture. If they didn't take action now, the Taiji faction would fall into a dilemma. At that time, the faction would be full of complaints and doubts about the ability of Su Yu, the new clan leader. Before the Taiji civilization could fall into chaos and decline, the Taiji faction would fall apart first. After a moment of silence, the old woman said, "Why don't we use our strength to forcibly seize the resources of the big shots of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce?" So you didn't speak. The Taiji civilization was too peaceful. Even Elder Tian could say such things. He asked, "If we use force, won't the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce?" Based on my understanding of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, there will be a strong man overseeing the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce in every region. If he takes action, who will deal with him? The old woman fell into deep thought again. Mo Xiaochai was also gradually losing her patience because of her anxiety. She said, "What should we do? Do we just watch the situation get more and more dangerous?" Some of the elders also began to doubt Su Yu's initial decision. Although they would slowly decline without doing anything, it was better than causing internal chaos. Most importantly, the external help that the clan leader had mentioned had yet to be found. Su Yu said calmly, "Let the people who are sent out continue to search for resources further away. On the other hand, try to contact the merchants you are familiar with and ask for their help. If this matter is resolved, you will pay them back double." The former did not hold out much hope. The latter still had the possibility of trying. They were all high-ranking members of the Taiji faction, and there were many merchants who tried to curry favor with them. At this moment, the Taiji faction was in need. If they were asked to take out their private stash to alleviate the current crisis, they might agree. After all, the clan leader had personally promised that they would pay them back double after the matter was resolved. Any shrewd merchant would choose to take the risk if they could double their profits in a short period of time. I will act now. I will also contact the merchants I am familiar with. Su Yu thought for a moment, then secretly left the Taiji faction and went to the Genuine Jade store. Boss Peng of the Genuine Jade store was one of the few big bosses in the Taiji faction. He had been in business for many years and had a high net worth. The amount of resources he controlled was already an astronomical figure. If he was willing to help them, he would be able to alleviate the shortage of resources. "Who are you looking for?" The Genuine Jade store was now overcrowded. As one of the few stores that obeyed the edict of the Taiji faction and voluntarily restored the normal prices, the waitresses were a little busy. Su Yu pulled on his bamboo hat and said, "Is Boss Peng here?" The waitress looked at Su Yu suspiciously and asked, "Who are you?" Su Yu said calmly, "A friend of Boss Peng." After a moment of silence, the waitress said, "Then please wait for a moment. Boss Peng has been very busy lately. Many bosses have come to see him." Nowadays, the prices of goods in the Taiji civilization were abnormal, and people were anxious. It was normal for bosses to visit each other. Suddenly, Boss Peng walked out of the guest hall of the inner yard with a group of people. Su Yu glanced at them casually and frowned slightly. Those people were all famous businessmen of the Taiji civilization. Su Yu even knew one of them. It was Yao Bailing's right-hand shopkeeper, Li Weidong. Li Weidong's face was full of arrogance, as he was politely sent off by Boss Peng. Watching them leave, Boss Peng let out a long sigh. As he was about to go back, the waitress said respectfully, "Boss Peng, this person said he is your friend and wants to see you." Boss Peng turned to look at Su Yu, who had his face covered by the bamboo hat, and asked in confusion, "Who are you?" Su Yu said nothing, and the faction master's token flashed across his palm. Boss Peng's pupils shrank as he said, "Faction? Boss Peng, you have a short memory. You even forgot about me." Su Yu interrupted him in time. Boss Peng understood and patted his head. "Oh, it's you, Boss Zong. Look at my poor memory. Please come in." The two of them entered the backyard. The waitress at the front desk stared at them and quietly crushed a communication jade pendant. Inside the secret chamber, Boss Peng turned around and immediately knelt down on one knee. "Greetings, Faction Master." Su Yu waved his hand and sat down casually. "You don't have to be so formal with me." Boss Peng stood up but did not dare sit down. Staring at Su Yu, who had taken off his bamboo hat, he felt that everything was unreal. The owner of the wine shop in the past had now become the Faction Master of the Tai Chi faction. "Welcome, Faction Master. May I ask if you have any advice for me?" Su Yu shook his head. "I can't say that I have any advice for you. I'm sure you have some guesses as to why I am here." Boss Peng looked troubled. He sighed bitterly and did not say a word. "Boss Peng, please feel free to speak your mind. I, Su, am not an unreasonable person." Boss Peng said, "Who was the person who left just now? Do you know him?" "Yes, he is one of Yao Bailing's people," Su Yu said. "So, your trouble is with them?" Boss Peng said helplessly. "Yes. Li Weidong was ordered by Yao Bailing to ask me to do two things. First, immediately raise the price of goods to a high level. Second, I am not allowed to secretly provide daily necessities to the Tai Chi faction." "So, you agreed?" So you stared at him calmly. Boss Peng smiled bitterly. "I'm sure Faction Master knows about Yao Bailing's background. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. I'm just a small businessman. Many of my sources of goods cannot bypass the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. If you don't agree, my career as a businessman will be over." Hearing this, Suyu was calm, without the slightest hint of anger. Businessmen valued profit over justice. No matter how good their relationship was, they would still choose profit over justice in times of crisis. Moreover, he had only met Boss Pung once. Why would he force him? "I have been rude. Farewell." Suyu put on his bamboo hat and strode away without any hesitation. Boss Pung chased after him and said, "Faction Master, please understand my difficulties. If it were possible, I would never agree." "I understand," Suyu said calmly. He could understand Boss Peng's difficulties, but if he could get over this, he would ask Boss Peng to understand his actions in the future. He would not deliberately hate Boss Peng, but he would not forgive him either. After returning to the Tai Chi faction empty-handed, the elders who had asked for help from the bosses they were familiar with also returned. Looking at their faces, Suyu already had an answer in his heart. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had not only searched the True Jade store, but many other shops as well. He would make up for it tomorrow. Chapter 2001. 2 days later, all the elders returned and gathered together to summarize their experiences. The old woman felt embarrassed and sighed. "I searched all the shop owners I knew, and only a few old friends of thousands of years took out their entire wealth, but it wasn't even enough for one day of the Tai Chi civilization's consumption." Sigh. Elder Tion was lucky. The shop owners I befriended in the past deliberately hid when they knew I was coming to visit. They didn't even want to see me. One of the Earth Elders, who hadn't earned anything, looked ashamed and helpless. "I thought I was the only one who encountered such a situation," another Earth Elder said. "Me too. They didn't even want to see me." I boldly barged into the secret room of a shop owner I knew to negotiate face-to-face, but they sent me away with the excuse that their resources had been bought. How infuriating! As they summarized their experiences, they realized that everyone's experiences were different. Do they think that the Tai Chi faction can't make it? Some of the Earth Elders said angrily. Only Suyu knew the real reason. He said, "Remember all the names of those who are still willing to help the Tai Chi faction. This was the most difficult time for the Tai Chi faction. Those who were willing to help were the most valuable. As for the others, you don't have to hate them, but remember their names one by one." In the end, they concluded that they could only find 1 day's worth of assistance from the various shop owners. Coupled with the resources they had bought from various civilizations, they could only use it for 2 more days. 12 days had already passed, and the Tai Chi faction could only hold on for about 10 more days. However, the situation didn't stop there. 3 days later, more than half of the shops that had lowered their prices had, for some unknown reason, reverted to their abnormal prices. The direct result was that the martial artists' reliance on the Tai Chi faction's resources had increased. As a result, the Tai Chi faction's daily outflow of resources had increased by more than 10%. The higher-ups were barely able to remain calm, but the Yin-Yang elders and disciples at the bottom were panicking. 2 days later, a rumor suddenly appeared in the martial artist market. The Tai Chi faction's treasury was almost empty, with less than 5 days' worth of storage left. The prices in the market would continue to skyrocket. As soon as the rumor spread, people panicked. Many martial artists could only buy what they needed for that day. They had no confidence about the next day or even the day after. Therefore, a small group of martial artists knew that the prices in the market were abnormal, but they still reluctantly bought them. This was to prevent the prices from skyrocketing again 5 days later. At that time, they wouldn't be able to buy anything even if they wanted to. The entire Taiji civilization was in a state of panic. From the martial artists on the outside to the grassroots of the Taiji sect, they were all panicking. There were only 5 days left. The upper echelons of the Taiji sect could no longer sit still. They had no choice but to gather every day to discuss. Because of the shops that lower their prices and the ancient era's prices rising again, many cultivators are buying more varieties from us, causing our consumption to increase greatly. I estimate that our current inventory will not last 3 days. 3 days was the limit of the Taiji sect. Suyu frowned slightly. Only 3 days left? 2 days less than he had expected. Pay close attention to the inventory. So you said, 1 day later, the inventory's consumption was less than 2 days' worth. Some of the Taiji sect's yin-yang elders and disciples were no longer in the mood to focus on stabilizing the prices of goods. Instead, they were actively thinking of ways to prepare for the huge shock that was about to come after the Taiji sect's inventory emptied. The cultivators' purchases became even more frenzied. This was because the prices of the goods in the cultivator's city square had already started to show signs of increasing. Another day passed. Su Yu and the other higher-ups stood in front of the warehouse, their expressions calm. The warehouse that had once been full was now only a corner of it. Those are only enough for tomorrow. On the last day, the few remaining resources were distributed to the yin-yang elders' mansions. Faction Master, if you have any backup plans, please use them. There is no time left. Mo Xiaochai's expression was calm. Not only had the prices of goods not decreased as expected, but they had also skyrocketed to a new height. This was especially true for necessities like elixirs, which had skyrocketed to 20 times the usual price. Such crazy behavior seemed to be mocking the Taiji sect. The group of Earth Elders looked at Su Yu. Back then, he had solemnly vowed to open the treasury. If he did not have any backup plans, he would have consigned the Taiji sect to eternal damnation. These are my personal resources. They can support us for another day. So he took out his own space storage device. He had obtained the storage ring of the Sword Alliance Master and almost all the resources of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, a 4-star civilization. It was barely enough for a 5-star civilization's living beings to use for a day. The group of Earth Elders was moved. Su had not been in the Taiji sect for long, so he had not received many benefits from the Taiji sect. The resources before them must have been accumulated by Su Yu in the past. Now, for the sake of the Taiji civilization, he had voluntarily offered them. The group of Earth Elders sighed. After struggling for a while, 10 of them took out their many years' worth of treasures. All right, I will take a gamble as well. Mo Xiaochai looked at Su Yu deeply. She believed that Su Yu would not speak without thinking. He must have his own confidence. Thus, they had finally gathered enough resources for 2 days. On the second day, the resources were distributed as scheduled, but the speed at which they were distributed was obviously slower. The third day was also the last day. The Taiji sect could no longer sustain itself. That night, in a luxurious restaurant, a group of pot-bellied businessmen were chatting happily with each other. Haha, according to the information obtained by our internal spies, the Taiji sect storage was completely used up 2 days ago. These 2 days, they have been relying on the Faction Master and the Elders' personal storage to support themselves. However, they have also said that they have reached their limit. According to reliable information, they will not be able to take out even a single elixir tomorrow. Yao Bailing said leisurely as he tasted the famous wine. Xiao Qian could not help but laugh. The Taiji sect's Faction Master is taking things too seriously. He thought that he could oppose the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce with just his storage. Now, not only did he not manage to stabilize the prices, he even got himself into trouble. Miss Bao, who was in the talisman industry, could not help but look forward to it. I have already ordered all the shops to make preparations. When a market opens tomorrow, the prices of all talismans will be doubled. Hee. I have also made the same preparations. The past 20 days have been torture. I was really worried that I would lose everything. From tomorrow onwards, the prices of all elixirs will increase. We must earn back all the losses from the past 20 days. Yao Bailing's lips curled into a meaningful smile. Do you think that the Taiji sect Faction Master will suddenly come to us tonight to beg? Xiao Qian and Miss Bao both looked proud and elated. When Yao Bailing had gone to the Taiji sect, she had wanted to have a good discussion. However, the Taiji sect's Faction Master had been so arrogant that he had asked Yao Bailing to get lost. Now that the dust had settled, Yao Bailing was the one who had the last laugh. She was truly shameless. Who can say for sure? Maybe the Taiji sect's Faction Master is thinking of an excuse. Xiao Qian laughed. Yao Bailing's eyes were filled with disdain. If the Taiji sect's Faction Master is willing to agree to my request, he can get rid of the human demon. But now, Not only is the hidden danger of the human demon still present, but the Taiji sect is also facing the danger of falling apart internally. You are too clever for your own good. His tone made it seem as if Su Yu was in the wrong, not the profiteers. The next day, the day before the market opened, the hearts of the Taiji civilization's martial artists were affected. Yesterday, the Taiji civilization had begun to spread the news that the Taiji sect's treasury had been depleted and could no longer satisfy their daily needs. This rumor had spread like wildfire, and most of the martial artists believed it without a doubt. Because the Taiji sect had not only given out fewer types of resources, but the quantity had also decreased. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the Taiji sect had reached its limit. From today onwards, the Taiji sect would no longer be able to give out resources. In the past, the residences of the great Yin-Yang elders would have opened to sell resources at a fair price. But now, all of their doors were tightly shut, and there was no movement. It was completely silent. This undoubtedly made the martial artists even more certain that the Taiji sect had reached its limit. Dong! Dong! All of a sudden, the loud and clear sound of the opening bell resounded throughout Taiji City. The martial artists entered the market to buy the necessities they needed, hoping to get lucky. However, what made them despair was that not only did the prices not decrease, but they had also doubled compared to the day before the market had closed. The frightening prices caused the martial artists to fall into despair. However, they had no choice but to buy. They had to bear with the pain and pay sky-high prices to buy necessities that were supposed to be cheap. The sound of cursing and fighting to buy blended together, and to the people of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, it was like the sound of nature. Haha, I love it when you answer cursing, yet you have no choice but to buy. Yao Bailing was in high spirits. Xiao Qian was also in high spirits as he watched the endless martial artists swarm into the market. It was as if he was watching an endless amount of wealth enter their pockets at a shocking speed. Miss Bao stared at the silent Yin-Yang elders' residences and smiled without saying a word. It was time to say goodbye to the Taiji sect. After today, the Taiji sect was destined to fall into a long-term decline. If they had known this would happen, why did they do it in the first place? However, right at that moment, a strange situation occurred in the market. Some martial artists seemed to have discovered something, and they frantically gathered in certain places, including Wenjiu and a few shops that listened to the orders of the Taiji sect and sold their goods at fair prices. They suddenly sold goods at fair prices that were rich in resources and a complete range of species. All of a sudden, the entire martial artist market was stirred up, and they all gathered in a few places. Noticing this, Yao Bailing's eyes darkened slightly. What's going on with those shops? Didn't you warn them? Her assistant, Li Weitong, who was behind her, furrowed his brows. Those shops have a deep relationship with the Taiji sect, so they didn't care about our warning. Yao Bailing said in a low voice, "What I mean is that the resources they are selling are clearly not in line with their industries. For example, Wenjiu, which Su Yu had founded in the past, was originally a wine shop, but now it was selling everything, including women's undergarments. It was a complete range of products that covered almost all industries. It was the same for the other shops, and they were all rich in resources. Could this be the Taiji sect's counterattack before they die?" Xiao Qian pondered, but he wasn't too nervous. "Don't worry, with their remaining resources, I'm afraid they can only sell for 2 to 4 hours. However, 2 hours passed. Chapter 2002. Their calm expressions finally showed signs of wavering. Yao Bailing calmed herself down and said, "Don't panic. Let's wait and see. From the information we have, Taiji sect has already used up all the resources they can use. It's impossible for them to continuously replenish the market." Another 2 hours passed. Almost all the cultivators noticed the appearance of these fair price shops and rushed over to buy them. The shops of the 3 tycoons were deserted, and no one showed any interest in them. Only the 20 times the usual high price tag fluttered in the wind, exceptionally eye-catching. Finally, Yao Bailing could no longer sit still and said, "Let's go ask the wine to see what exactly is going on." Li Weitong immediately went to Wenjiu. With great difficulty, he managed to squeeze through the crowd to the entrance of Wonjio restaurant. Looking inside, he saw many unfamiliar people with low cultivation levels selling all kinds of things. 7 or 8 Yin-Yang elders were patrolling the area to ensure that no one would disturb them. He was secretly shocked. He went to the other shops, but the result was the same. Under the protection of the Taiji sect, a group of unfamiliar creatures continuously sold goods. After observing 8 families, the results were the same. Li Weitong had a bad premonition and quickly returned to report to Yao Bailing. Hearing this, Yao Bailing's expression darkened. If that's the case, then it is indeed the Tai Chi sect's doing. I don't know where they found reinforcements. Xiao Qian's heart skipped a beat. He felt a sense of panic, as if he had stepped off a cliff. Where did the Taiji sect get its allies from? Even if they did, how could they mobilize so many resources? I don't know. Yao Bailing had a feeling that they were one step behind. Have the intelligence department do their best to investigate. We must get to the bottom of the situation. The whole day passed. What Yao Bailing and the others were worried about happened. Those unknown people had a lot of low-level and mid-level resources. They sold for an entire day without any signs of shortage. Their identities were still unknown. It was as if they had appeared out of thin air in the primal chaos civilization overnight, leaving no traces behind. The next day, they were still the same, with countless resources. The third day, the fourth day, the fifth day. Finally, Xiao Qian and Bao Qian fell in a panic and urgently convened a meeting of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. In another 5 days, a new batch of daily necessities will flow into the market. At that time, the market will be full of goods, and the warriors won't be able to buy them from us at a high price. What should we do? While they were panicking, wasn't Yao Bailing the same? Unexpectedly, the situation was developing in an extremely bad direction. Have you found out who they are? Yao Bailing asked. I found some clues. The person in charge of intelligence said they aren't citizens of the Taiji civilization, but an organization that has gained some fame recently. They're called Ding. Cauldron? Everyone was unfamiliar with this name. They had never heard of this organization before. The person in charge of intelligence said, Ding is active within the territory of the 4-star civilization, the Dark Star civilization. In just a few short years, they've conquered all the civilizations within their territory. Their organization isn't very strict, but they're rather united. What do you mean? Yao Bailing frowned. Small organizations that rose up like this usually did not go far, because once they grew stronger, they would inevitably cause internal divisions due to interests and eventually fall apart. There had to be a reason why they could remain united even after unifying the entire 4-star civilization. There's a mysterious commander among them who calls himself Cauldron Venerable. He's very mysterious, and we can't find out his identity at all. The only thing we know is that the core members of the Cauldron organization are very respectful and obedient to Cauldron Venerable. Therefore, the Cauldron Venerable is quite united around him. Hearing this, Yao Bailing's brows relaxed. Get ready to practice. I like to talk to Cauldron Venerable alone, Yao Bailing said. Normally, he wouldn't even bother to talk to a new organization at the level of a 4-star civilization. But now, the other parties seemed too important. Yes, Li Weidong said. At the Tai Chi faction, Su Yu stood on the highest peak of the faction master, looking down at the entire Tai Chi city. He nodded slightly. Cauldron Venerable, I'm afraid the resources we've gathered won't last long. Behind him was the deputy Cauldron Venerable, the King of Darkness. The person Su Yu contacted was none other than Ding. In recent years, Ding had gradually gained control of all the civilizations within the territory of the Dark Star civilization. After receiving Su Yu's order, it immediately gathered a large number of resources from the local area. Fortunately, the daily necessities weren't of a high grade, so even 1-star civilizations could provide them. Ding started working, gathering the resources collected from all sides to King of Darkness. King of Darkness used the inter-civilization transportation portal and finally arrived in front of Su Yu in the evening 5 days ago. I don't need you to last too long. Another 5 days will be enough, Su Yu said. He thought to himself that his decision to establish the Cauldron organization was indeed correct. If he hadn't used the power of the Cauldron to replenish the goods in time, the business war with the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce would have been a complete failure. This made Suyu even more determined to continue developing the Cauldron. Get the Cauldron ready to accept the closed shops in 5 days, Suyu said with a touch of coldness. It was time to settle the score. The parasites hidden in the Tai Chi civilization had to be uprooted completely. By the way, Cauldron Venerable, a person in the elixir industry named Yao Bailing, wants to talk to you face to face. Suyu shook his head with a smile and said, "Tell him that the opportunity has passed." He had given Yao Bailing a chance. As long as the prices were restored immediately, he would let bygones be bygones. However, Yao Bailing didn't cherish it. Now that he wanted to talk again, he had lost the bargaining chip. Okay. Not long after, Yao Bailing got the King of Darkness's reply from Li Weidong. Hearing the familiar words, Yao Bailing looked unwilling. It seems like the Cauldron has a special relationship with the Tai Chi faction master. This path could no longer be taken. Xiao Qian and Bao Qianjin, who were sitting opposite, were even more pale. They had no hope of making a comeback. They were all doomed. Trillions of things were in their hands, and they couldn't sell them even if they wanted to in the future. Tai Chi faction master, you have gone too far. After a long silence, Yao Bailing's eyes were filled with hostility. You put me in a dead end, so I will make you regret it at all costs. Xiao Qian and Bao Qianjin understood Yao Bailing's meaning at the same time. They said in surprise, "You want to? What else can I do? At most, I will spend some money. It is better than being doomed eternally, right?" Yao Bailing said with a faint look. "What about you? What will you choose?" Xiao Qian and Bao Qianjin fell silent at the same time. 5 days later, when the resources brought by the Cauldron were about to be exhausted, new necessities flowed into the market one after another. The output was huge, and the price of daily necessities plummeted in just a few breaths. It was now 20% lower than usual. The shops of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce were no longer able to affect the market, so they had to follow the trend and sell a large amount of resources. The huge amount of resources impacted the necessities market again, and the price fell to half of the usual price. In order to quickly earn back their money, the merchants who stocked up on goods had no choice but to do so, even though they knew that they were making a huge loss. Of course, to prevent the market price from being too low and causing another negative impact, the Tai Chi sect appeared and bought them wantonly. In just 3 days, they had used the money they earned from selling the resources in the treasury to buy resources. Not only did they return to their peak condition, but their total amount had also doubled. All of this was thanks to the profiteers who had shed blood and tears. In the main hall of the Tai Chi sect, after a month of depression, Elder Tian and Elder D were in high spirits and chatted with each other with relaxed expressions. I never thought that the Tai Chi sect's countless years of accumulation would actually double in just 1 month. An Elder sighed. He still felt that it was unreal. Haha, what we have is a loss to the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. This time, the wealth that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce invested can be considered epic. It is normal for the Tai Chi sect's resources to double. Normal? If the sect master did not dispatch a surprise force to catch the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce off guard, what situation would we be in now? When they heard this, everyone felt deep respect. Although they did not say it out loud, actually looked down on the new sect master. His cultivation was low, he was young, and he had no experience. How could he lead the Tai Chi sect? It was all because of the inexplicable qualification to be the sect master. But now, in the battle against the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, they gradually realized how extraordinary Suyu was. Outstanding foresight, powerful courage, and unknown connections and connections. Although it was far from making up for the lack of a sect master, it was enough for them to accept this new sect master. His abilities were certain. Before long, Suyu arrived. After a moment of silence, he said, "Now that the market prices have returned to normal, the worries have been eliminated. However, this is only a temporary solution. If anyone has any good suggestions, feel free to raise them." Hearing this, Many of the elders felt proud and elated. The time to settle the score had arrived. The merchants who maliciously hyped up the market should be punished with a fine so that they will remember this lesson forever. We should set up a market supervisory clerk association to check the market prices at any time. Once we find that someone is hyping up the market, we will be able to be alert in advance. We will not suddenly fall into danger like we are now. We should impose more taxes on them so that they will not dare to recklessly hype up the market. Everyone spoke one after another, and all of them expressed their valuable opinions. Many of them were desirable. However, Suyu listened silently without saying a word. Elder Tion and the old woman's eyes flashed. Does the sect master have any plans? Many elders immediately stopped their discussion and looked at Suyu. Suyu calmly looked around at them. Your suggestions are very good, but you have all forgotten one thing. As expected, the sect master had reservations about their suggestions. Sect master, please speak clearly. Suyu said word by word. If you do not kill the snake, you will suffer. None of their suggestions dared to kill the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce in one fell swoop. Whether it was fines, the establishment of a supervisory mechanism, or taxes to the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, they were all just restraints. When the time was right, they could still cause trouble again. At that time, the Tai Chi sect might not be able to suppress them again. Sect master, you mean? The old woman became serious. Chapter 2003. Master, I don't think that's appropriate. Judging from the previous performance, at least 70% of the shops in the market are controlled by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. If they were all expelled, who would replace them? Wouldn't this cause a shortage of secondary goods and cause chaos? The old woman voiced her concern. Suyu looked at her with admiration. After this incident, they finally started to pay more attention to business. There's nothing inappropriate about it. The Cauldron will take over their positions. Instead of handing over the economic lifeline to outsiders, it's better to hand it over to our own people. They had seen the Cauldron's performance. Moreover, it had a close relationship with the master. It was trustworthy. Can the Cauldron accept so many shops? Some elders expressed their doubts. Suyu smiled faintly. Don't worry, they can do it. Next, the Tai Chi faction announced a piece of shocking news. The rent of all the shops in the Tai Chi city would increase by 10,000 times next year. The Tai Chi faction owned all the shops in the market, and they had the right to increase the rent at will. What? 10,000 times? In the authentic Jade store, Boss Peng's heart almost jumped out of his chest. The rent of the authentic Jade store was currently 10 million divine stones per year. If it increased by 10,000 times, it would be 100 billion. 100 billion. The authentic Jade store didn't even sell that much every year, let alone profit. This was clearly forcing all the shops to leave. Is the news true? Boss Peng asked the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper nodded affirmatively. The Tai Chi faction posted the notice personally. Except for a small number of shops, the rent of the rest of the shops will increase by 10,000 times. The rest of the shops? Boss Peng's heart was as clear as a mirror. That small portion of the shops should be the ones that followed the Tai Chi sect and actively stabilized their prices. Now that the Tai Chi faction had calmed down, they were starting to clear the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Isn't this too cruel? Boss Peng was anxious. He had expected that the Tai Chi faction would definitely take action against the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, but he hadn't expected Suyu to be so decisive. He wanted to drive out the entire Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Although the authentic Jade store wasn't part of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, it had sided with the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce when the Tai Chi faction was in danger. No, I have to see the master. Boss Peng had been rooted in the Tai Chi faction for many years. However, when he arrived at the Tai Chi sect's guest hall, his eyelids couldn't help but twitch. He saw a sea of people with gifts in their hands waiting in the waiting room. Without a doubt, they were in the same situation as Boss Peng. They had brought gifts to plead for leniency. On the other hand, Boss Peng was empty-handed and could not bring out anything. Suddenly, Boss Peng remembered that a new batch of acquired Sky Origin crystals had arrived recently, and they were worth no less than 100 billion. Feeling a pang in his heart, he separated it and placed it in an independent spatial storage ring. After waiting patiently for 3 days and 3 nights, Boss Peng finally had the chance to come to the main hall where the sect master worked. Su Yu's nonchalant voice could be heard from the other side of the phone. The increase in rent is the decision of the Tai Chi faction. If you think it's unreasonable, you can look for another civilization to develop. By the way, take the gift with you. I won't accept it. Not long after, a gloomy boss left with his head hung low. Boss Peng's heart skipped a beat, and he felt uneasy. Next, Boss Peng walked in cautiously with a deep sense of unease. She saw that Su Yu was leaning over the table. With a gentle stroke of his brush, he crossed out a name on the booklet. He looked up and saw that it was Boss Peng. He nodded slightly. "What brings you here, Boss Peng? Please take a seat." Boss Peng stood respectfully, not daring to stand. He said, "I know that the sect master needs acquired sky origin crystals, so I found a way to get a batch. I hope the sect master will accept it." He placed the spatial storage device on the table. Su Yu glanced at it and said, "Boss Peng, are you here for the rent as well?" Upon hearing that, Boss Peng knew that the moment to decide his fate had arrived. He hurriedly said, "Sect master, please be merciful. I was forced by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce and had no choice but to comply." Su Yu did not care. Boss Peng was afraid of the sanctions of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. But was he not afraid of the punishment of the Tai Chi faction? In that war without gunpowder, Boss Peng had chosen his side with his actions. Of course, unlike other businessmen who follow the trend to create hype, Boss Peng was initially willing to cooperate with the Tai Chi faction and take the initiative to calm the prices. It was just that his stance was not firm enough. Such a businessman could not be killed in one fell swoop. I understand you, but please understand my position. As the Tai Chi faction master, I should charge you 10,000 times the rent, but for personal reasons, I will exempt you from 100 years of rent. After 100 years, everything will be done according to the rules." With that, Su Yu had done his best. Boss Peng's face turned pale. He only had 100 years. After 100 years, he would have to leave the Tai Chi civilization. His heart was bitter, not knowing whether to be happy or sad. "Take the gift back. I won't accept it." Su Yu sent him off briefly. Boss Peng did not feel good. He clutched the storage ring and left the Tai Chi faction in a daze. As soon as he stepped out of the door, he met 2 familiar owners. Unlike the gloomy faces of other businessmen, the 2 of them were glowing and in high spirits. "Haha, Boss Zhao, the sect master gave me the normal rent and gave me 10 times the price of the shop for free for 100 years. I am completely confident that I can become #1 in the industry within 100 years. I received the same favor. I have to say that the new sect master is a man who values kindness. I only did my best to support him during the price war last month. I did not expect him to give me more than 100 times the compensation. What they lost was just a little less of the black-hearted money they earned in a month. But now, the compensation they received was 100 times that of the black-hearted money. It was easy to imagine how happy they were. Suddenly, the 2 of them saw Boss Peng and went forward to greet him. "Boss Peng, congratulations. You must have received a reward from the sect master, right? The scale of the Jin Shui store has expanded by more than 10 times. How enviable." Only the Tai Chi faction had statistics on the specific details of the price increase of the shop. The businessmen who were involved in it did not know much about it. The 2 of them only knew that Boss Peng, like them, had taken the initiative to stabilize the prices. That was why they said that. Boss Peng looked embarrassed, and a great sense of regret welled up in his heart. In the past, Boss Peng did not take the 2 of them seriously at all. But now, they had received 100 times the compensation, and their future development would far surpass his. Moreover, in 100 years, he would have to leave the Tai Chi civilization and go to another civilization to develop. He could not help but recall the time when Su Yu personally came to ask for help. Why was he so muddle-headed back then? How could he have rejected the sect master's request for help? If he had tried his best to help, the reward he would receive now would be much more than the 2 of them in front of him. Unfortunately, time cannot be turned back. The opportunity had been lost, and it would never come again. He bid farewell to the two of them gloomily and returned to the Zhen Shui store. Suddenly, a mysterious man wearing a bamboo hat stopped him and said, "Boss Peng, you look troubled. Do you want to find a place to have a drink or two?" Li Weidong. Boss Peng immediately recognized that the man was Yao Bailing's assistant. He could not help but feel resentful. It was this person who had caused his mind to waver and caused him to lose a great opportunity. Haha, sure. Boss Peng was furious. He did not dare to cause trouble for Yao Bailing, but he did not dare to teach a lackey a lesson. "Boss Peng, please." The place that Li Weitong brought him to was indeed a restaurant, but he was not qualified to drink wine yet. This was because the restaurant was filled with the top businessmen of the Tai Chi civilization. There were the three giants of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, and there were also businessmen who were not from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Boss Peng could only be considered above average among them. With a glance, Boss Peng knew who they were. Without exception, they were all businessmen who had been chased away by the 10,000 times rent. They had gathered together, but he did not know what they were going to do. "Boss Peng, have you met the sect master?" Yao Bailing asked with a gloomy expression. "How much did he reward you?" Boss Peng could hear the probing in her words. He rolled his eyes and smiled bitterly. "He only allowed me to continue operating for 100 years. After 100 years, the 10,000 times rent is waiting for me. Is this considered a reward?" Hearing this, Yao Bailing, Xiao Qian, Bao Qianjin, and the others exchanged glances and nodded slightly. Boss Peng was not lying, just like the information from his spies. "Then, Boss Peng, are you willing to wait for death and be chased out of the Tai Chi civilization after 100 years? Boss Peng was perceptive. He knew that this gathering was probably not a good thing. It was most likely that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce and the businessmen who had been chased away were unwilling and were preparing to create a conspiracy. With a thought, Boss Peng said resolutely, "I have been rooted in the Tai Chi civilization for many years. I'm naturally unwilling to give up just like this. Please save me, Boss Yao." Yao Bailing smiled leisurely. "The heavens only save those who save themselves. I have a mission. If you can complete it, you will receive 100 times, or even 1,000 times more benefits than what you have now." Boss Peng was tempted. His mouth was dry as he said, "Boss Yao, please show me the way. It is very simple. Donate money and invite the assassins of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce to come and get rid of the Tai Chi faction master." Hearing this, Boss Peng gasped. "Get rid of him? Other than that, there is no other way." Yao Bailing shook her head coldly. "Only by getting rid of him can we mobilize our power and change the minds of the Tai Chi faction." Boss Peng's eyes turned secretly. He asked cautiously, "What are the chances of killing him?" 100%. We are prepared to invite a mid-stage 5-crown divine warrior assassin. Even with Mo Xiaochai's protection, so you will not be able to escape death." Boss Peng was shocked once again. A mid-stage 5-crown divine warrior. Ordinary people like them could not even contact such a level of assassin. Only people like Yao Bailing, who were insiders of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, could contact the assassins of the Chamber of Commerce. "How is it?" Yao Bailing stared into his eyes, slightly impatient. In her eyes, Boss Peng was only a medium-sized businessman. She did not have much time to wait for his reply. Chapter 2004. "Then, how much should I donate?" Boss Peng asked cautiously. Yao Bailing calmly said, "The lowest price to hire a mid-stage 5-crown emperor is 100 trillion divine stones. Everyone here, the lowest donation is 1 trillion. 1 trillion was even more generous than Su Yu. Su Yu's rent was only 100 billion, but Yao Bailing wanted 10 times that. Do you think I'm a piece of meat on the chopping board that you can cut at will?" Peng Yuanxin was filled with hatred. They were both merchants, but they were all foxes from the same mountain. Why talk nonsense with him? Peng Yuanxin knew Yao Bailing's plan and intentions. Hiring a 5-crown emperor assassin of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce did not even require 1 trillion divine stones. He had asked for 100 trillion divine stones. Obviously, he had two plans. Firstly, he could use the merchants to hire an assassin to kill Su Yu. Secondly, He could make a fortune to make up for his recent losses. Why? Are you unwilling? Yao Bailing's eyes gradually turned cold. What could Peng Yuanxin do? If he did not pay up today, he would die. If I can assassinate Su Yu and change the Tai Chi faction's decision, I will support it. But it is too much money. I have less than 800 billion divine stones. I have accumulated this money over the years. I hope you will be kind enough to let me donate 700 billion divine stones and use the remaining 100 billion for myself. How about that? He had been in business for many years and had 1 trillion divine stones. He naturally wanted a bargain. Since everyone has 1 trillion, how can I make an exception for you? Don't think I don't know your background. Just last year, you made no less than 30 billion. After so many years, how could you not have 1 trillion? Either you don't pay up, or you pay up 1 trillion. Yao Bailing said unceremoniously. It was obvious that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had spies in the Jin Shui store. They could even investigate his income. At that moment, Peng Yuanxin was filled with regret. Associating with this kind of person would only result in being eaten alive sooner or later. 1 trillion divine stones was the result of hundreds of years of hard work. But he had no other choice. I'll pay. I only ask that you kill Su Yu. Peng Yuanxin said through gritted teeth. He took out several space storage devices and handed them over. Only then did Yao Bailing's expression soften. She took out a contract. It was a contract to assassinate Su Yu. Inject a strand of your soul imprint into it, and we'll be friends. Yao Bailing said. This contract was meant to restrict Peng Yuanxin. If he dared to leak the secret, as long as Yao Bailing destroyed the contract, his soul would instantly shatter. Feeling helpless, Peng Yuanxin left a strand of his soul in it. Now, Boss Peng, go back and wait for the good news. I believe there will be good news soon. Peng Yuanxin left the restaurant. The more he thought about it, the more unwilling he became. Why did he have to let his years of savings be taken away? When he returned to the True Jade Hall, he looked up at the maidservant at the reception desk and felt even angrier. The person he had cultivated for many years had actually become a spy for the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Filled with grievances, he entered the secret chamber and pondered for a long time. I can't just sit here and wait for death, Peng Yuanxin muttered to himself. With a thought, he disguised himself again and left silently with the help of some teleportation talismans. When he reappeared, he was in front of the Taiji sect. Rather than trust you, I might as well trust Su Yu, Peng Yuanxin thought. At the very least, Su Yu could repay those who had helped him 100-fold. As for Yao Bailing, it was highly likely that he would take another bite out of him in the future. After patiently waiting in line for a long time, he finally saw Su Yu again. Su Yu was slightly puzzled. Boss Peng, do you have any other questions? Peng Yuanxin hesitated for a while, then said, I have something to tell you, Master. It concerns your personal safety. Speak, Su Yu said as he stopped writing. Before I speak, I hope Master can promise me that you will take back my soul contract, Peng Yuanxin said. No problem. Peng Yuanxin then told Su Yu what had happened after he left the Taiji sect. She had assumed that Su Yu would be flustered, or at the very least, nervous. Unexpectedly, Su Yu's eyes were calm. He nodded his head slightly and said, as expected, he had ruined the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce's great plan and caused many industry bosses to go bankrupt. Their deliberate revenge was not unexpected. However, Su Yu now had the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole, which were fused with the bones of the Pathmaster. His teleportation speed was comparable to the peak of the 5-crown divine warriors. The middle-stage assassins they had hired probably could not even touch the corner of Su Yu's clothes. I have received the message. Thank you, Boss Peng, Su Yu said calmly. He paused for a moment, then crossed out Peng Yuanxin's name on the booklet. He said, I have changed my previous decision. Your rent will be as usual. As long as you do not violate the rules of the Taiji civilization, you can do business in the Taiji civilization forever. By the way, I will help you remove your soul contract now. Su Yu held a life cutter in his palm. As the knife fell, Peng Yuanxin felt a sharp pain in his soul, as if a part of it had been cut off. Before Peng Yuanxin could be angry, he was shocked to find that the part of his soul that had fallen into the contract had been disconnected from him. Thank you, Master. Thank you, Master. Peng Yuanxin was overjoyed. Losing 1,000,000,000,000 divine stones was distressing, but he was most unwilling to let his soul be held by others. Originally, he had imagined all kinds of situations where he could not get back the contract. If necessary, he would do it himself. Now that he had lost a trace of his soul, the contract was directly removed. He looked at Suyu deeply, a trace of respect in his heart. To be able to break the soul contract without being noticed, such a feat did not seem like something a divine warrior would do. In the past, he had underestimated this person's true abilities. I will take my leave. Peng Yuanxin walked out of the Tai Chi faction's great hall, his mind suddenly open. He had erased the ban that had been in place for 100 years, and he had also successfully removed the contract. The rewards of this trip were far beyond his imagination. Although I made the wrong choice once, I hope I won't make the same choice again, Peng Yuanxin thought. Next, he could only pray that Suyu could successfully escape from the 5-crown divine warrior's middle-stage killer. Just as he was thinking about this, an 8-zhang tall, muscular, and emitting an oppressive aura suddenly appeared in front of Peng Yuanxin. A huge projection enveloped Peng Yuanxin. Friend, may I ask how to get to the Tai Chi faction? The other party asked calmly and forcefully. Peng Yuanxin's heart skipped a beat. Facing this person, he felt an unusual sense of oppression. He hurriedly pointed the way. 300 miles east, it is in the center of the city. Thank you. The other party nodded and stepped into the air. He stepped aside, and Peng Yuanxin was shocked to find out that this person was followed by a large group of people. He could not see through half of the people's cultivation bases. The rest that he could see through were at least 4-crown divine warriors, early stage or middle stage. My goodness, where did so many powerful 4-crown divine warriors come from? Peng Yuanxin secretly clicked his tongue. With the state of the Tai Chi civilization, normally, no 5-crown divine warrior would come to visit, and it was even less likely for 5-crown divine warriors to come in groups. Peng Yuanxin naturally did not dare to associate them with 5-crown divine warriors. Unfortunately, reality exceeded Peng Yuanxin's expectations. Suyu had just sent off a merchant when he sent something. He instantly disappeared from the Tai Chi Great Hall and appeared in the sky above the Tai Chi faction. The Hunter King saw a silver-haired youth blocking his way. He cupped his fists and said, I would like to see your faction, master. Suyu did not say a word. He took out his identity token and said, Looking for me? You are a group of 5-crown divine warriors, and you have come to visit me. Is there something you need? He was calm and composed. Not only could he see through their cultivation bases at a glance, but he was also fearless. If it were an ordinary master of a 5-star civilization, he would have lost his composure by now. As expected of the old senior's disciple, even in the presence of 5-crown divine warriors, he still had such a bearing. We are the Hunter Alliance. A few days ago, we received a great favor from your master. We have no way to repay him, so we have come to help you on his orders, the Hunter King said. Suyu looked surprised. I see. That old fellow has always been a busybody. The Hunter King and the others looked embarrassed. They did not dare to say a word. I don't need your help with anything. However, if you have nothing to do, you can rest in the Tai Chi civilization for a while and see if there is anything you can help with. The Hunter King nodded. That's exactly what I intend to do. Before he came to the Tai Chi faction, he had naturally inquired about the current situation of the Tai Chi faction. He was somewhat dismayed to find out that not long before they came, there had been a relatively serious economic turmoil in the Tai Chi faction. Unfortunately, the current faction master was wise and mighty, and he had resolved the turmoil. They had no place to use their skills now. You have too many 5-crown divine warriors. If the news gets out, I'm afraid it will cause the Tai Chi creatures to feel uneasy. So, why don't you rest in my faction's main peak for the time being? So he did not want to expose them prematurely. The Hunter King said, We will follow the faction master's arrangements. Just like that, Suyu openly arranged for them to stay at the faction's main peak. There were a total of 400 of them. Among them, there were more than 35 crown divine warriors and more than 304 crown divine warriors. Such a majestic group of people, naturally, could not be hidden from the eyes and ears of those with ulterior motives in the faction. For example, Imo Xiao Chai. Hey, where did you find so many experts? There are also 30 people whose cultivations I can't see through at all. Don't tell me they're all 5-crown divine warriors? Imo Xiao Chai said half-jokingly, half-seriously. So you shrugged. Do you believe me? Nonsense, of course I don't believe you. If you could really contact so many 5-crown divine warriors, you could hold a small ecliptic palace assembly. Imo Xiao Chai said calmly. She could only think that the 30 people whose cultivations she could not see through were due to their constitutions. She could not be blamed for thinking that way. She knew Su Yu's background better than anyone else. She and her husband, Huang Fulayong, were born in the poor sea of constellations. They had no background to speak of. Apart from the great ultimate faction master, he had never seen a 5-crown divine warrior in his life, let alone invited so many 5-crown divine warriors to the great ultimate civilization as guests. She had never thought of such a thing. Isn't that it? Su Yu smiled indifferently. Arrange for my cauldron to accept the assets of those merchants who are preparing to leave the great ultimate civilization as soon as possible. Humph. You are abusing your position for personal gain. Write a recommendation letter to the cauldron immediately and let me join the cauldron. Also, give me a good position. Otherwise, I will tell on you. Imo Xiao Chai did not get up early without benefits. She could see that the cauldron's future development was limitless. With Su Yu's unstinting support, it was likely that in the next 10 years, not only the great ultimate civilization, but all the civilizations within the jurisdiction of the great ultimate civilization would have their markets controlled by the cauldron. Its potential was immeasurable. Chapter 2005. Since he had established the cauldron, there was no possibility of Su Yu giving up halfway. What is the ecliptic palace assembly you mentioned just now? Su Yu asked. Imo Xiao Chai's expression was unnatural as she said, It's nothing. It's just a gathering of civilizations. Only the 5-star civilizations under the jurisdiction of the ecliptic palace are qualified to receive an invitation to participate in the ecliptic palace. Our great ultimate civilization is a civilization that pays particular attention to manners and elegance. We have never bothered to participate. Bothered to participate? He did not believe a single word that came out of Imo Xiao Chai's mouth. Perhaps the great ultimate civilization was not qualified to receive an invitation from the ecliptic palace? What is the ecliptic palace? Su Yu had heard the name of the ecliptic palace countless times, but he did not have a deep understanding of what it was. Imo Xiao Chai rolled her eyes at Su Yu, then suddenly said, It's normal that you do not know. The ecliptic palace has always been mysterious. Not many people know about it. The so-called ecliptic palace is an organization established by the Taoist masters. Its purpose is to maintain the order of the civilizations below the 6-star level. Otherwise, think about it. Why is it that the civilizations are so vast, yet there are no bandits who commit crimes and plunder everywhere? It is because of the deterrence of the ecliptic palace. Once an organization that destroys order appears, it will be ruthlessly wiped out by the pathmasters of the ecliptic palace. Su Yu's heart trembled slightly. He knew that the ecliptic palace was formed by the pathmasters. However, he did not expect it to have such a function. This was different from what he had imagined. Then what is the significance of the ecliptic palace assembly? Su Yu asked. Imo Xiao Chai tried to hide her jealous and envious expression. It's nothing much. The master of civilization, who performs well, is qualified to pick a Bodhi fruit from the ecliptic palace. Su Yu's heart moved. What is the use of the Bodhi fruit? It's useless. It can only help you break through to the next level, Imo Xiao Chai said casually, but the desire in her eyes could not be concealed. Break through to the next level? Su Yu's eyes brightened slightly. If he persisted in taking the 9 Yin elixir, he would break through to the next level sooner or later. This Bodhi fruit reward was indeed not worthy of the great reputation of the ecliptic palace. You may have misunderstood me. The level I am talking about is not the improvement within the realm, but the crossing of the entire great realm. For example, If you reach the late stage of a 4-crown emperor after taking one, you could directly become a 5-crown emperor. If a peak 5-crown emperor consumes one, there's a chance of immediately becoming a Tao Lord. Hearing this, Su Yu's pupils shrank fiercely. It was easy to increase one's cultivation level, but it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to cross a great realm. Su Yu had managed to obtain the mysterious spiritual medicine that the corpse emperor did not manage to take away in time. Only then did he manage to break through to the middle stage of the 3-crown martial emperor. If he could obtain the Bodhi fruit, wouldn't he immediately become a 4-crown emperor? Going back and forth would save at least 100 years of cultivation time. How can I get an invitation? Su Yu was completely tempted. Stop daydreaming. There are only 2 ways to obtain an invitation. One is to be ranked in the top 1,000 of all the 5-star civilizations under the jurisdiction of the Zodiac Temple. Su Yu heaved a sigh of relief. There were still many places available. So, what's the ranking of our Taiji faction? Mo Xiaochai tilted her head and thought for a moment, probably around 80,000. Hearing that, Su Yu gasped. Your Highness Wang Dao, are there so many 5-star civilizations? Are you sure? TSK, what fuss? What's a mere Zodiac Temple in the boundless Tai Chu? It's just a speck of dust in the nothingness. Mo Xiaochai was unconcerned. At this moment, Su Yu deeply felt the vastness of Tai Chu. 85-star civilizations. A 5-star civilization ruled the boundless nothingness. One could imagine how vast the area of influence of an 85-star civilization was. With the Taiji factions ranking so far behind, it seemed like it wouldn't be easy to enter the Zodiac Temple Great Meet. What's the other way you mentioned? Su Yu suddenly asked. Mo Xiaochai thought for a moment, then said, It's very simple. A 5-star civilization in the top 100 is willing to recommend us. Su Yu couldn't help but laugh bitterly in his heart. He didn't even know a single master of civilization, let alone one that was so highly ranked. You should also give up on this path. The 5-star civilizations in the top 100 can all be called half-path civilizations. Those civilizations have at least one half-step pathmaster in charge. That's how they can intimidate the other heroes and rank in the top 100. Half-step pathmaster? Su Yu's heart stirred once again. Just like half-step emperors, there was a transitional stage between emperors and pathmasters. There were people who were about to become pathmasters, but were still lacking in maturity. Their strength surpassed the 5-crown emperors, but it was far below the level of pathmasters. It was even more impossible for Su Yu to get acquainted with such a civilization. Both paths were hopeless. Moreover, even if he participated in the meeting, not everyone would have the opportunity to pluck the Bodhi fruit, right? Thinking of this, Su Yu, who had always believed himself to have some perseverance, couldn't help but shake his head, expressing his helplessness. All right, I'll write you a letter of recommendation to ensure that you can enter the top management of the Cauldron organization, Su Yu said generously. To be able to rope in an existence comparable to a 5-crown emperor into the Cauldron organization as a fighter, how could he not take this deal? Mo Xiaochai happily took the letter and ran to find the King of Darkness, strongly requesting to join. Of course, she strongly requested a bonus. With Su Yu's handwritten letter, she smoothly joined the Cauldron organization. However, she would only be a Cauldron king. Mo Xiaochai didn't really care. What she cared about was whether she could get a bonus. Time flowed like water, and a whole month passed in the blink of an eye. The shops of the Tai Chi civilization underwent a major overhaul. More than half of the merchants were having a clearance sale, preparing to leave as soon as possible. The Cauldron actively joined in the takeover, buying their goods and shops together, and continued to operate under a different name. In less than half a year, it could take over more than 80% of the shops. On this day, Su Yu suddenly felt a strong fluctuation in the thread of fate. He knew it was the mid-stage 5-crown Emperor killer that Peng Yuanxin had warned him about. He left the Tai Chi Great Hall as if nothing had happened and returned to the Faction Master Peak. Coincidentally, the Hunter King was training at the peak. Faction Master Su, I'm really sorry. I've been here for more than a month, but I haven't been of any use. the Hunter King said apologetically. Su Yu paused for a moment, then said, "It's all right. It's enough for you to show your sincerity." Is the one who broke into the Tai Chi faction your friend? The Hunter King immediately sensed a hidden aura of a five-crown emperor. Su Yu said in surprise, "My friends are all out of town. They won't be back for a while." "Then who is this?" The Hunter King's eyes suddenly sharpened. "I'll invite him over and question him face to face." "Thank you." With a swoosh, the Hunter King disappeared. In just 3 breaths, without even the sound of a fight, a short, skinny man with fierce eyes was brought back by the Hunter King. His head was crooked to one side, and he was unconscious. "I'm sorry." He wanted to resist, so I was a bit heavy-handed. "Just what I wanted." Su Yu immediately checked his body and found that there were several treasures and talismans on his body that could kill himself at any time. He did not remove them. Instead, he opened his soul eye between his brows and forcibly dragged his soul out of his body. He had to thank the Hunter King for knocking him out, so his soul was in a state of unconsciousness. Otherwise, trying to drag out the soul of a mid-stage, 5-crown emperor was no different from a fantasy. Little did he know, the Hunter King saw this and felt his heart skip a beat. Forcefully restraining the soul of a 5-crown emperor. Such a divine technique. Only the upper third-rate soul race could do it, right? Could this person be a member of the soul race? Thinking of his identity as a disciple of the Pathmaster, he was even more certain of his guess. After swallowing the soul, Su Yu silently digested it for a while and obtained many useful memories. When he opened his eyes again, they were filled with a cold light. It would be impolite not to reciprocate. "Soul-like clone," Su Yu said softly. His soul was divided into 9, and one of the 9 souls turned into an independent soul and entered the body of the killer. Seeing this, the Hunter King's eyes were filled with shock. "You are a member of the soul race?" The Hunter King's heart trembled. To be able to divide one's soul and give it an independent personality was a unique talent of the soul race. The faction master Su before him was definitely a member of the soul race. That was the upper third-rate race of the legends. To hunters like them, it was an unattainable existence. His heart was in turmoil. He had helped Su Yu before to curry favor with the Pathmaster. But now, he could not help but have a new thought. If he could have a strong backer, why would he work so hard to be a hunter? However, he still needed to observe for a while to determine whether Su Yu's identity was real. If he was really a soul, his connections should be very strong. Su Yu looked at him, neither denying nor admitting it. "I hope you can keep this a secret for the time being." "Definitely." In the depths of a secret underground room, thousands of businessmen gathered together with their most trusted bodyguards. They gathered together anxiously, making the gloomy underground room seem unusually depressing. The fateful moment had arrived. A few hours ago, the killer from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had finally arrived from the 6-star civilization and taken over the mission from them. Now, he should be lurking in the Tai Chi faction, preparing to assassinate Su Yu. Peng Yuanxin was also among them, feeling extremely nervous. Su Yu was so confident that he could escape the killer's pursuit, right? If Su Yu met with misfortune, Peng Yuanxin would not suffer any loss. However, under the rule of people like Yao Bailing, he could foresee the end of the Zhan Shui store. In less than 100 years, it would be swallowed up by them unscrupulously. Yao Bailing and the others were equally nervous. They were 100% sure that the killer they had hired could kill Su Yu. But what if there was a mishap? Now that they had used the killer, they had shed all pretenses of cordiality. If they failed, what awaited them would be Su Yu's merciless counterattack. Therefore, the businessmen who were involved in this matter gathered together and built a temporary inter-civilization transportation portal. Once an unavoidable accident occurred, they would all flee. Xiao Qian could not bear the pressure and muttered softly, "It's been so long, and there's still no movement." Yao Bailing said calmly, "The killer must be waiting for a more suitable time to strike. Don't worry." All of a sudden, the door of the secret room was forcefully pushed open by an external force. The businessmen were so frightened that their hearts constricted. However, when they saw who it was, they all heaved a sigh of relief. The mission is completed? Yao Bailing's heart was completely at ease. The fact that it was not a member of the Tai Chi faction who had come indicated the outcome. The killer nodded. Xiao Qian asked doubtfully, "Why is there no movement?" The killer said indifferently, "Do we need movement to kill a 3-crown emperor?" Chapter 2006. Xiao Qian nodded. "Not bad." Before he finished speaking, the assassin said, "However, I did not kill him." Before they could rejoice, everyone was stunned. Yao Bailing's brows sank. "Were we discovered?" The assassin slowly walked down and shook his head. "Then why did you give up halfway?" Yao Bailing asked in surprise. Suddenly, the cold-looking assassin grinned. "Of course, I came back to send you on your way." As soon as he finished speaking, the assassin turned into a blur and instantly occupied the temporary inter-civilization transportation formation. Yao Bailing's expression changed drastically. "Not good. Quickly scatter and escape." However, several 5-crown emperors walked down from the entrance, blocking the exit so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Many merchants broke out in cold sweat. They realized that the space around them had been sealed, and their teleportation talismans could not be used. "Who are you?" "We are from the Star Alliance Commerce. Do you understand the consequences of killing us?" Yao Bailing glared at the 5-crown emperors that were walking over, his heart beating fast. The newcomers were naturally the hunters that had been temporarily dispatched. Their gazes were indifferent as they said softly, "There is no Star Alliance commerce here. Only the Taiji Sect Master." Before they understood what the Taiji Sect Master meant, they charged into their midst like tigers in a flock of sheep and shouted, "Those who surrender will not be killed." Yao Bailing gritted his teeth and took out an offensive talisman from a 5-crown emperor and was about to throw it out. However, he and the leaders of the Star Alliance Commerce were important targets. How could he give them a chance to attack? "Kill all those who resist." The 5-crown emperor roared through the air. A sound wave swept over and shattered Yao Bailing. His body and soul were both destroyed, and he could not be more dead. Xiao Qian and Miss Bao were also killed instantly. The rain of blood caused the merchants' hearts to tremble, and they immediately surrendered. In front of the 5-crown emperors, they could not resist at all. Not long after, thousands of merchants were disarmed and surrendered. Their cultivation was sealed, and their storage devices were all taken away, turning them into ordinary people. Peng Yuanxin was the only one who was safe and standing among the crowd. His face was filled with shock and disbelief. Where did the Taiji Sect Master find these 5-crown emperors? The outside world actually knew nothing about it. However, what followed was a huge shock. Peng Yuanxin knew that he had gambled correctly this time. Since Su Yu was so calm, he must have some powerful tricks up his sleeve. He had gambled wrongly once and had almost lost his fortune. Fortunately, he had gambled correctly the second time. After the hunters had suppressed all the rebellious merchants, Su Yu manipulated the killer's body and reactivated the temporary transportation portal. With a muffled rumble, his figure disappeared. In the vast nothingness that was an unknown distance away, a battleship that was comparable to a 5-star civilization traversed the boundless nothingness. It ignored the terror of the nothingness and moved about freely. In a certain inter-civilization teleportation formation in the giant ship, the assassin's figure flashed out. An old man, with an indifferent expression, waited in front of the transportation formation. He said unhappily, "You are 1 hour later than expected." "This subordinate is incompetent," the assassin said. The old man was one of the people in charge of the 6-star civilization's Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce branch. He was in charge of assassination activities. Their main goal was to get rid of the obstacles that prevented the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce from expanding their business, such as some masters of civilization who were ignorant of the times. Of course, these civilizations had to be very important and profitable. 4 low-level civilizations that were below 5-star civilizations, it was not worth it to send 5-crown imperial assassins. It took you half a day to assassinate a master of a 5-star civilization who was ranked 80,000. Do you know that 3 assassination missions were delayed during this time? The old man reprimanded. "Elderly, please punish me." The old man said, "There will be no punishment, but this will not happen again. Now go to the mission hall and quickly deal with the 3 delayed assassination missions." Yes, the assassin left and came to the mission hall. In this battleship, more than 80% of the people were professional assassins trained by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. They were always on standby in the mission hall to carry out assassination missions from various Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce branches. The assassin stood at the door of the hall and looked inside. He saw hundreds of 5-crown Imperial assassins waiting silently, closely watching the changes of the missions on the crystal screen. Once a mission corresponding to their name appeared, they would immediately go to the front desk to take the mission and leave quickly. It was not without reason that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce could dominate the nothingness. With such an invincible assassination team, how many of the 5-star civilizations did not obey? The masters of civilization that did not obey were probably already dead. The assassin's lips curled into a faint, cold smile. Standing in the middle of the hall, he suddenly took a deep breath, and the great desolation power in his body started to spin crazily without warning. His entire body was like an inflated balloon that was about to explode. He's being controlled by someone and is about to self-destruct. Quickly retreat. The strange movement caused the assassins to be on guard. They quickly reacted and teleported out of the mission hall. However, this assassin's self-destruction was too sudden, and they were not prepared. Boom! The power of a mid-stage 5-crown Emperor's self-destruction could be imagined. The entire mission hall was within its range. Only a few assassins managed to escape. The rest were affected. The entire mission hall was blown up beyond recognition. The ground was littered with assassins wailing in pain. Many had even been killed on the spot. The entire mission hall shook violently because of the violent explosion. An incomparably large hole had been blasted open. A large amount of power of nothingness flowed into the battleship and swallowed everything that could be swallowed along the way. Elder Lee, who was sitting cross-legged and guarding the teleportation formation, suddenly had a change of expression. He sped toward the mission hall. What he saw was a scene that made him tremble with anger. The mission hall no longer existed. All that was left was a giant hole. The hole was filled with corpses and countless injured people. Of the several hundred 5-crown Emperor-level assassins, less than 200 were still alive. More than half had been killed. Those that survived were all seriously injured. Only less than 10 people had successfully escaped from the mission hall. Who can tell me what happened? Elder Lee's eyes were about to pop out as he roared. An assassin that had luckily escaped said, "It's Kongxing. He was controlled by someone and suddenly self-destructed in the mission hall." Him? Elder Lee's heart shook. Kongxing's mission had taken far longer than expected, so he had been controlled by someone. Retrieve the details of his mission. Elder Lee shouted. He remembered that it was a very simple mission. A member of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce from a lagging 5-star civilization had requested to send assassins to assassinate a disobedient master of civilization. This mission should have been relatively simple. Why had he been captured? In the end, after looking through the information, there was indeed something wrong with this master. Strange, a 3-crown emperor could actually become the master of a 5-star civilization. Elder Lee was suspicious. After a moment of silence, he said, "Retrieve the information of everyone named Suyu." Someone beside him immediately took out a scroll. The scroll was densely packed with Suyu's name. Anyone who was slightly famous in the great beginning realm with the name Suyu would appear on the scroll. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce's information was so complete that it was shocking. Soon, a piece of information about Suyu that matched the description of the Tai Chi master stopped. The first time he appeared was in the Sea of Constellations. His exact origins are unknown. The second time he appeared was in the Diyu Empire. He assassinated the person in charge of the Diyu Empire's Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. The third time he appeared was in the Dark Star Civilization. He killed the person in charge of the local Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, Alliance Master Jian. The fourth time he appeared was in the Tai Chi Civilization. He suppressed the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce's Price Alliance. Currently, the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce has confirmed that he is a D-grade threat. He is a target that must be killed. Looking at the information behind the name, Elder Lee's face was cold. You are always going against the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, and we still can't find out who you are? Are you from the Nirvana organization? Only the Nirvana organization could provide Su Yu with strong protection and successfully subdue Kongxing. In the Great Beginning Realm, the Nirvana organization was one of the few large organizations that could compete with the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Both parties fought in many fields. Now, Su Yu is going against the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce everywhere he went. If he wasn't from the Nirvana organization, it wouldn't make sense. Repair the giant ship immediately. Elderly closed the scroll and said coldly, "How should we deal with this D-grade threat?" The assistant beside him asked. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce usually divided people who could pose a threat into 4 levels. B, C, and D. As threats, they were targets that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had to eliminate. The D-grade threat was the lowest. It could be eliminated or temporarily observed. Now that the 100 stronghold of the assassins has been severely damaged, it is not advisable to make a big move. Moreover, the person who subdued Kongxing must be a peak 5-crown martial emperor. There might be a half-step Taoist master. Unless we use the gold medal assassins, it will be difficult to succeed. The assistant understood what the elder meant. It was not worthwhile to carry out an assassination now. The Nirvana organization and the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had too many similar conflicts. They were already used to each other and were not in a hurry to seek revenge. However, we must keep an eye on this person. Any movement must be updated in time. Yes, in the Tai Chi civilization. Su Yu opened his eyes slowly. There was a hint of exhaustion in his eyes. The self-explosion had sacrificed 1/9 of his soul. Naturally, his original body was affected. However, the information obtained from the destroyed souls made it worth it to lose some souls. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce has a feud with the Nirvana organization. That is unexpected. Su Yu touched his chin as if he had found something very interesting. His eyes shone with a subtle light. However, the power of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce is unimaginably strong. The battleship with hundreds of 5-crown martial emperor assassins is only the 100th stronghold of the assassins. In other words, there are at least 99 other strongholds. The assassins in those strongholds are definitely no less than this battleship. And this is just the tip of the iceberg of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce in the 6-star civilization. If this was the case for a 6-star civilization, how terrifying would the 7-star, 8-star, or even 9-star divisions be? The more Su Yu thought about it, the more he realized the terrifying power of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. The true power of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce was gradually revealed in 6-star civilizations and above. Chapter 2007. In the end, the Taiji sect is still too small. So he took a deep breath and regulated his breathing for a moment. He then looked at the 2 beauties in front of him. Then, let us continue our previous conversation. Do you wish for me to convince the hunter to send you back? Yin Xinchuang crossed her arms before her chest and said awkwardly, "If it wasn't necessary, I wouldn't ask you for help." The young girl stared at Su Yu with infatuation, saliva dripping from the corners of her mouth. "Brother Xiao Sa, you sent me home. I'm so happy." "Hey, you damn girl, don't forget who you're talking to. This guy won't do anything unless he benefits us. How could he possibly send us home for free?" Yin Xinshuang poked the young girl's forehead. Su Yu chuckled. "The one who knows me best is Mountain Master Yin. Cut it out. What do you want?" Yin Xinshuang looked at Su Yu as if she had seen through him. "So you didn't try to hide it. I saved you from the Corpse Clan, which is a life-saving grace. Now I've sent people to escort you back, which is another grace. Isn't it reasonable for you to compensate me a little?" Yin Xinshuang was furious. If Su Yu had not snatched the Pathmaster's bone, she would have returned home by now. She would not have been chased by that purple-haired Su Yu. After that, he was even more unlucky and fell into such dire straits. He actually had the nerve to talk about gratitude. However, since it had already come to this, Yin Xinshuang could only ask Su Yu for help. The journey to her hometown was long, and the two of them had used up all their magic treasures. Without anyone to protect them, it would be very difficult for them to return to their hometown safely. State your conditions first, Yin Qinshuang said. Suyu smiled. Then I'd like to ask, which civilization are you from? Yin Qinshuang hesitated for a moment, but the young girl replied without hesitation. We're from a four-symbol civilization, one of the top 100 five-star civilizations. My grandfather is the master of civilization. When Yin Qinshuang tried to stop him, it was already too late. Suyu's eyes lit up when he heard this. Top 100 civilizations? Half-path civilization? The aunt and niece duo actually came from such a high-level five-star civilization. How unexpected. In that case, can you recommend my Tai Chi civilization to participate in the ecliptic meet? Suyu revealed a cunning look. Yin Qinshuang immediately felt a headache coming on. She knew that something was wrong the moment her niece mentioned it. Sure enough, Suyu, the scheming vixen, would never let him off. Sure, the girl quickly said. Yin Qinshuang glared fiercely at her and said, Don't speak again. She stared at Suyu and said, It's impossible to invite the Tai Chi civilization. Why? Suyu asked. That's because our four-symbol civilization won't even participate, so we naturally have no right to invite others to participate. Suyu had never thought of such a reason. He said, Has the ecliptic meet lost its appeal to the half-path civilizations? Of course not. The civilizations that participate in the ecliptic ceremony will obtain unimaginable benefits. However, the master of civilization of our four-symbol civilization, who is also my father, is currently refining a 9-bone heart-saving pill to extend Patriarch's life. The Patriarch was most likely a half-step downlord of the four-symbol civilization. The reason the four-symbol civilization was able to remain in the top 100 was most likely because of this half-step downlord. If he died, the status of the four-symbol civilization would probably plummet. At the very least, the four-symbol civilization would not be able to protect the top 100 half-path civilizations. Thus, compared to the ecliptic meeting, the life of the ancestor was naturally more important. 9-bone heart, saving pill. Suyu's eyes shone suddenly. You're looking for the Pathmaster's bone for this pill? Yin Qinshuang's beautiful eyes were filled with resentment as she said, Pathmasters are rare existences. The bones of ordinary Pathmasters are retrieved by the Ecliptic Palace after they die. Very few of them end up in the outside world. I've searched through many ancient books and found traces of the faceless Buddha and the common people's Pathmaster perishing outside. That's why I went to the Sea of Constellations and the Dark Star civilization. So that was why. No wonder they would appear in such a remote civilization. Suyu pondered for a moment before saying, You want to use the invitation to the ecliptic meeting to exchange for the Pathmaster's bone. Can't I? Yin Qinshuang asked. Suyu shook his head lightly. I can't give you everything. I can only give you a thumb-sized portion. How rare was the Pathmaster's bone? If the other party casually exchanged all of it for an invitation, the deal would be a failure. Yin Qinshuang's beautiful brows sank slightly. A thumb-sized portion was barely enough, but what if the refinement failed and she needed to refine a second time? If you're not willing, then forget it. The Pathmaster's bone was also very important to Suyu. All right, I'll give you my father's promise first, Yin Qinshuang said decisively. However, you might need to make a trip there personally. It will take at least 5 years to get to the four-symbol civilization, and there are only 10 years left before the ecliptic meeting. If you wait here for news, I'm afraid I won't even have the time to come back and deliver the invitation to you. Moreover, it will also take a long time to get to the ecliptic palace. Suyu pondered for a moment before nodding slightly. All right, we'll leave in a year, Suyu said in a low voice. There was still one thing he had yet to do. The human demon. 3 years had passed since the human demon had appeared, but in these 3 years, there had been no movement from the human demon, as if he had never appeared. It's time to get rid of the human demon. Suyu left the small courtyard and arrived at the training grounds of the Hunter King. He sensed Suyu's aura and immediately stood up. Does Master Su have any instructions? Suyu looked troubled. To be honest, I've recently received information that a very dangerous existence has appeared in our civilization. Oh, how dangerous! The Hunter King's eyes shone brightly. He wasn't afraid of danger, but he was afraid that Suyu wouldn't have any danger for him to deal with. Now, there was finally a place for him to use his skills. Suyu told him about the human demon. When he found out that the human demon had killed the previous faction master with just a talisman, his face turned grave. This human demon's abilities should be on par with mine. Suyu then said, however, apart from me, we have so many brothers. Victory will not be a problem. Hearing that, Suyu heaved a sigh of relief. Are you waiting for him to come knocking on our door? The Hunter King asked. Suyu said calmly, no, I prefer to take the initiative. At the same time, in the underground world, in the tribe of the ancient people, the human demon was chewing on a roasted bat as he looked at the ancient people standing in front of him with boredom. Compared to the ancient people he had seen 3 years ago, the eyes of the ancient people now shone brightly, showing their high intelligence. Even more exaggerated was the fact that they were sitting cross-legged and swallowing the black fog that the human demon had casually spat out. They were obviously training. At first, the strongest among them was only a 3-crown divine warrior. But now, one of them was at the level of a 4-crown divine warrior in the middle stage. After training, the 4-crown divine warrior in the middle stage of the ancient people spoke in human language. Ancestor, you sacrificed your primordial energy to increase the intelligence and cultivation of our unworthy descendants. We are very ashamed. The human demon did not care and said calmly, I naturally have my reasons for helping you. Otherwise, with your weak bloodline, do you think you are worthy of being my descendants? I would have eaten you all as food. The ancient people's hearts trembled. At first, there were 10,000 of them, but now there were less than 5,000. Where the rest? They were all in the human demon's stomach. For the past 3 years, the human demon had eaten 5 ancient people every day. This had greatly reduced the number of ancient people. They had tried to resist this man-eating demon, but he had only released his breath, and they were powerless to resist. In the end, they had surrendered to him and listened to his orders. We are willing to listen to the orders of the ancestor. The human demon stretched lazily and said, my order to you is to stay here obediently and don't go out at will. When he finished speaking, he stood up. Ancestor, are you leaving? The corner of the human demon's mouth curled up slightly. I'm going to meet that little guy, one of the 8 profound meanings, and a master of the space law. Such a person must be delicious to eat. In the Tai Chi faction, in the Tai Chi Great Hall, the high-level people were gloomy. Just now, the Tai Chi faction master announced to the entire Tai Chi civilization, without warning that from now on, they would mobilize for war and launch a life-and-death war against the human demon and the ancient people. The announcement spread to the minds of all living creatures in every corner. Everyone knew about it, and it was too late to organize it. Therefore, the elders' faces were extremely gloomy. They had finally survived the assassination of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Before they could even catch their breath, Suyu had arbitrarily launched a war against the human demon. Wasn't this looking for trouble for themselves? Perhaps the human demon had never intended to cause trouble for them. Most importantly, although it was a mobilization for war, how could they have the absolute strength to fight against the human demon? In the entire Tai Chi civilization, the only 5-crown divine warrior was Mo Xiaochai. But the Tai Chi faction master had been easily killed. Could Mo Xiaochai stop him? The faction master's decision was too hasty. He simply did not care about the safety of the Tai Chi civilization. Many elders, who had just had a better impression of Suyu, suddenly had an extremely bad impression of him. This was not the behavior of a faction master. Everyone, do you have any objections? Suyu asked calmly, taking in everyone's expressions. The old woman, who had always supported Suyu, could not help but stand up and say, Faction Master, if I may ask, why didn't you discuss such an important matter with us? At the very least, we would have been mentally prepared. Suyu said indifferently, If I had discussed it with you, You would have used all sorts of excuses to persuade me not to send troops, wouldn't you? The old woman did not speak. That was indeed what she was thinking. But, faction master, how do you think the Tai Chi faction can fight against the human demon? With just a few of us here? The old woman asked. This question was also on everyone's mind. Su Yu's actions were unfathomable and inexplicable. Of course, the Tai Chi faction can't do it. This has been decided in the past. We need external help, Su Yu said. Everyone was stunned. Since he understood, why did he still do it? And Mo Shaochai muttered, Faction master, you can't be pinning your hopes on the friends of the Four-Crown Divine Warrior, right? She had seen Su Yu arrange for a large group of Four-Crown Divine Warriors and people with special constitutions to stay at the faction master's peak. Friends of the Four-Crown Divine Warrior? Su Yu was surprised. Chapter 2008. Not good. Give up the chain of law. The Hunter King's face changed dramatically. But it was easy to give up the chain of law. But who would be willing to do so? If they gave up, it was equivalent to their lifetime of condensing the laws to vanish in an instant. They would never be able to possess the laws again, and their cultivation would be halted for life. While they hesitated, they were about to be swallowed up by the devouring power. Absolute time. At this moment, Su Yu suddenly said, a majestic and invisible law descended and froze the rapidly expanding devouring sphere. The devouring power lost its effect in an instant. The group of five-crowned emperors succeeded in withdrawing their chain of law and retreated in unison. Even the Hunter King no longer had the slightest will to fight in his eyes, only endless fear. When the absolute time ended, the expanding sphere dissipated instantly. A trace of surprise flashed across the human demon's ferocious face. The law of time? I remember that you have also cultivated the law of space, haven't you? That's strange. The one on the Saint Mountain actually allowed people of this era to successfully comprehend the two supreme laws. However, such a person might taste better. The human demon licked his lips and became more interested in Su Yu. The Hunter King held Su Yu in one hand and said, the human demon is not something we can contend with unless the half-Dao master or the Dao master comes in person. Su Yu was unmoved. He sat firmly on the throne and said calmly, although the world is vast, where can we escape to? Why don't we fight head-on? He raised his hand and grabbed, and a powerful space halo shrouded their heads. His laws are changeable, but they are not invincible. Su Yu watched the battle from the side and did not stay idle. His eyes shone with a profound light of wisdom. His laws can only devour tangible things, but they are ineffective against intangible things such as space, air, divine energy, and so on. He saw it very clearly just now. After the absolute time ended, the devouring sphere, which should have continued to expand, suddenly disappeared. It was not that the human demon disappeared on his own accord, but that he had lost the target of his devouring. So what? Can we turn invisible and fight him? The Hunter King asked. Su Yu shook his head gently. That's not possible, but at least it can make you not afraid of the devouring power. Looking at the space halo above his companions, the Hunter King was skeptical and said, brothers, let's try it again. Everyone attacked at the same time without hesitation. The human demon sneered. So what if you see through my laws? You will still die. In an instant, he glared at the person closest to him. A devouring orb immediately appeared on the hunter's body. At this moment, the space halo above his head flashed and teleported him elsewhere. The devouring power on Zhang Xian immediately vanished, because he had lost the continuous support of his magical vision. The hunter who had just passed through the gates of hell still had a lingering fear in his heart. The other hunters who saw this had a trace of joy on their faces. So this was the effect of the spatial halo. The human demon still had a cold smile on his face. This is just the beginning. With him as the center, a gigantic devouring sphere appeared and touched the nearest hunter. Just as it was about to devour him, the spatial halo above his head flashed and he disappeared. After losing the object it could devour, the devouring orb immediately disappeared. The group of hunters was overjoyed. Without any hesitation, they used their divine spells while the man's magic was gone. A cold smile still hung on the human demon's face, but he didn't say anything else. A devouring sphere surged out of his body, blocking the divine arts coming from all directions. The Hunter King's heart skipped a beat, and he gave the hunter beside him a look. A trace of fear flashed in the hunter's eyes. He gritted his teeth and pounced forward with all his might, attacking the devouring orb fearlessly. "You're asking for your own death." The human demon was indifferent. However, the hunter had barely touched the devouring orb when he was teleported away by the spatial halo above his head. The devouring orb disappeared abruptly because it had lost the object it could devour. The Hunter King thought to himself. His figure flashed, and a ferocious divine spell hit the human demon's chest. The human demon's body was just Yang Hua's body. How could it withstand the blow of the five-crowned Peak Emperor? With a bang, Yang Hua's body turned into flesh and blood. Only a stone hammer, surrounded by green light, was left floating in the air. A faint shadow of a ferocious soul flickered near the stone hammer. It was the soul of the human demon's original body. At this moment, the human demon no longer had a cold smile on his face. There was only endless anger. "A bunch of ants. Congratulations, you've angered me." He stared deeply at Suyu, who was sitting on the throne. In his eyes, the five-crown emperor was just a puppet that he could crush at will. The real threat was Suyu, who controlled the supreme law. Without his superb mastery of the law of space, these people would have died long ago. Sky-splitting hammer. The shadow of the human demon clenched his fist and held the stone hammer in his palm. His aura rose crazily, surpassing the five-crowned emperor and reaching a realm that made the five-crowned emperor tremble. It was as if what stood before them was not a soul, but the vast heavenly law. In front of him, the five-crowned emperor was like an ant, unable to even muster the will to resist. The Hunter King trembled all over, his eyes full of disbelief. He said in a trembling voice, "The power of the Path Master. He is the remnant soul of the Path Master." The rest of the five-crowned emperors looked desperate. In front of the Path Master, any power was superfluous. Only Suyu had a calm look in his eyes. He said leisurely, "You really are the remnant soul of the Path Master." When he first sensed the danger in the dark forest, he had expected this. The intense uneasiness was definitely not an ordinary existence. "Human, I've changed my mind. I'll eat your soul, but I'll gladly accept your body as the price for causing me to lose my body." The human demon wielded the might of a Tao lord and slowly raised the stone hammer in his hand. With that, the rules in the hunters' bodies began to tremble. Even Suyu's 6 rules showed signs of instability. This situation could only happen when facing the Pathmaster. The blow of the stone hammer was definitely at the level of the Pathmaster. Everyone present fell into deep despair in an instant. The creatures of the entire Taiji civilization could not help but feel their hearts beating wildly. Their blood flowed backward, and they felt the fear of the end of the world. With a blow from the Pathmaster, even the 5-star civilizations would cease to exist. It is your fortune to be born at the end of the era, but it is also your misfortune. I hope you can still make it in time to stop. All of a sudden, Suyu shouted loudly for some reason. At this moment of crisis, what was the point of shouting such inexplicable words? At first, the human demon sneered, but then he realized something, and his face changed drastically. "Shut up, boom!" All of a sudden, a crack appeared in the sky, and a boundless giant palm suddenly slammed down with rolling heavenly power. The target was Suyu. However, when it sensed the presence of the human demon, the palm turned to crush him. The human demon roared in shock. "Human, you tricked me." Without waiting for him to finish, the giant palm slammed down and crushed him into nothingness. Then, the giant palm dissipated and the sky closed again. The sky was blue, and the wind gently blew the clouds as if the scene just now had never happened. The hunters were stunned on the spot, unable to understand the scene in front of them. The human demon was about to be destroyed along with them and the entire five-star civilization. Why did Su Yu's casual shout cause a horrifying heavenly power to appear and obliterate him? Only Su Yu sat steadily on the throne, his face calm. Everything was as expected. What he shouted was not someone else's words, but the incomplete words of the remnant soul of the Path Master of the common people's path. He wanted to tell the world some secrets, but in the end, he attracted a mysterious giant palm that obliterated his remnant soul. The human demon kept saying this century and the end of the world, as if he was afraid that Su Yu did not know that he was like the Path Master of the common people's path and knew some secrets. Therefore, after thinking of ways to destroy his body and expose his remnant soul, Su Yu naturally used the words of the Path Master of the common people's path. Therefore, he easily attracted the giant palm. The giant palm sensed the ancient soul of the Path Master level like the human demon, and naturally determined that he was the one who was going to reveal the secret, so it killed him. He naturally would not tell these to the hunters, but his eyes flashed slightly. How was the ancient tribe? The Hunter King came back to his senses and said, "The hunters of the four-crowned emperors have already gone, and they should be almost done with the harvest now." The ancient tribe. The ground was filled with the corpses of the ancient people, stacked together by hundreds of four-crowned emperors and burned into ashes. I wonder what enmity faction master Su has with this group of ancient people. He repeatedly instructed us to kill them and destroy their corpses, a four-crowned emperor said, puzzled. Faction master Su must have his reasons for making such arrangements. Check again to see if there are any fish that escaped the net. Faction Master Su said that we must not let any of them go. The group of four-crowned emperors searched everywhere. Even the dark forest was searched thoroughly. After confirming that there were no more, they left the ancient tribe. It turned out that before officially declaring war on the human demon, Su Yu had sent the hunters of the four-crowned emperors to hide near the ancient tribe, waiting for orders. When the human demon appeared, Su Yu sent a message to them that they could move, which led to the current situation. The group of hunters left the empty ancient tribe and also left the underground world. However, what they did not know was that a long time after they left, in the quagmire of the underground world, a growing nine-een grass suddenly moved. Immediately after, an ancient person covered in mud crawled out from it. He stared at the direction where the hunters left and hurried back to the tribe. It turned out that he was an ancient person who was hunting outside and coincidentally left the tribe, missing this disaster. When he returned to the tribe, looking at the ashes all over the ground, the ancient person slapped his chest with both hands and roared, "Ancestor, quickly save your descendant." However, the ancient person suddenly froze, and then his face became pained. Visible to the naked eye, the blood vessels under his skin were rolling with an eerie green light, wriggling continuously in his body, and finally converging at his chest. Bang! His chest suddenly exploded, and he died tragically on the spot. A stone hammer that was covered in dim green light rose up shakily from the shattered chest. Soon, a dim shadow of a soul appeared, looked at the ashes all over the ground, and then looked at the only corpse at his feet, and said in a low voice, "What a cunning human! He actually predicted that I could use the ancient person to be reborn. If this ancient person had not coincidentally been hunting outside and avoided the disaster, the human demon would have been reduced to ashes." Chapter 2010. At least I didn't raise you bunch of trash for nothing. Human demon stared at the corpse. He didn't spend 3 years to awaken their bloodlines out of kindness. He wanted them to be reborn at any time through the connection of their bloodlines. That was why he had ordered the primordial humans to not leave this place, and had even planned to wipe out all the civilizations outside of the primordial humans. It was to protect the primordial humans and leave himself a way out. Initially, he thought that he would only use this trump card when he encountered an expert in the future. Little did they expect that they would fall into the hands of a human before even leaving a small 5-star civilization. Human, let's wait and see. Human Devil's soul was weak, so he needed to find a place to rest. This place was no longer suitable for him to stay any longer. He could only leave the five-star civilization and come back for revenge in the future. Taiji sect. After dealing with the human demon, Su Yu and the group of hunters returned. The sect leader peak was rebuilt, and it was even more majestic than before. Su Yu sat steadily on the faction master's throne. To his left was the Tai Chi faction's elder, who was in high spirits and standing ramrod straight. On the other side were the hunters, standing calmly. Everyone, the human demon has been eliminated. From now on, we will focus on development and revitalize our Tai Chi civilization, Su Yu said. Sect Master is wise. The Tai Chi faction's elders spoke in unison. Their voices were clear and loud, and their eyes were filled with respect and admiration as they looked at Su Yu. If it was to stabilize the prices of goods, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, exterminating the demonic humans was not something that could be done by ordinary people. Looking at the generations of sect masters, he believed that not many sect masters had the courage and ability to solve this problem. Now, I will announce the candidate for the sect leader, Su Yu said. His gaze swept across the crowd and landed on the old woman. From today onwards, Elder, you will be a candidate for the next faction master of the Tai Chi faction. Many of the elders had no objections to this. As the only elder Tian, it was normal for him to be chosen as a candidate. They were surprised that the Taiji sect would choose a candidate at this time. There's another thing to announce. I'll be heading to the Four Symbols civilizations for official business. I'll be gone for a long time. If the life card I left in the sect shatters, the candidate will inherit the position of the sect master. Mo Xiaochai will handle this matter properly. The crowd was in an uproar. Sect leader, you can't leave. If it wasn't for you, what if something happened to the sect master again? After witnessing Su Yu's methods of quelling disasters twice, he suddenly found himself unable to leave. You can focus on running the civilization. If there are any problems, I will come back again, Su Yu said. How could there be so many big problems popping up one after another? Encountering two at the same time was already a small probability event. All right, the meeting is adjourned, Su Yu said. After leaving the Tai Chi Great Palace, Su Yu went to the martial artist market. Huang Fulayong and Yin Yu were busy sorting the Tai Shu in the shop. Both of them looked very satisfied. Goodbye, brother Huang Fu. Su Yu smiled apathetically. The current situation was the best reward he could give Huang Fulayong. As Xiao Chun strolled around the market, he noticed that more than 80% of the martial artist market had become Ding's business. It could be said that Ding was raking in money every day. As for the resources and divine stones that Yao Bailing, Xiao Qian, Bao Qian, and the other rebellious merchants had seized, it was an astronomical figure. Not only did they bet their savings for many years on the speculation, but they also borrowed hundreds of times their own money from various parties just for this gamble. Now that he had lost the bet, everything belonged to Su Yu. According to a rough calculation, the total value of these resources was 100 times greater than the entire Tai Chi faction's treasury. It was equivalent to the sum of 10 five-star civilizations. This provided Ding with an abundant amount of funds for its rapid development. Su Yu met the King of Darkness for the last time. Before he left, he gave him many Jiuyin elixirs so that his strength could recover to its peak as soon as possible. My cultivation doesn't matter. I am a scabbard created by the Killing Path Master. In this life, I can only reach level 5 of the Middle Star Realm. I need to remind you not to forget the secret of the scabbard, the King of Darkness said. The Killing Path Master passed down the secret before his death, so it must be very important. Su Yu nodded. He had stored the secret in the depths of his mind and had not opened it yet. It involved secrets of the Path Master, so it was better not to get involved for the time being. At the very least, it could only be opened when one's strength was on par with the Pathmaster's. After settling everything, Su Yu returned to the Faction Master's Peak. Yun Xinshuang and the young lady were preparing for this long journey. The Hunter King and many other hunters were also packing up. After this battle, they were very respectful of Su Yu. He had mastered the laws of time and space. Such a nature-defying genius would have a limitless future. As expected of the Path Master's disciple, he was extraordinary. Moreover, this person had a wide network of contacts. He could actually contact a high-level civilization like the Four-Symbol Civilization, which further confirmed his identity as the Pathmaster's disciple. Therefore, the Hunter King and his companions decided they would first return to the Hunter Alliance and hand over the people in their hands. Then, they would all join the Cauldron and become the core strength of the Cauldron. Firstly, they would be able to serve the Pathmaster's disciple. Secondly, they would be able to achieve long-term development in the Cauldron. An organization personally created by the Pathmaster's disciple would definitely have a terrifying scale in the future. At the very least, it would not be weaker than the Hunter Alliance. If they joined the Cauldron now, they would have the merit of helping the Pathmaster. In the future, their status in the Hunter Alliance would not be comparable to theirs. Once everything was prepared, they set off immediately. Through the inter-civilization transportation portal, they would be transported to the nearest small civilization, and then to the other large civilizations. 2 years later. 2 years had passed since Su Yu and his companions had left. Everything in the Tai Chi faction was running normally, until a figure suddenly appeared in front of the Tai Chi faction. A few years have passed, but the Tai Chi faction is still the same. The person entered the waiting room and sighed softly. The yin-yang elder who received them was surprised. Who was this person? Why was he sighing like this? When he looked up, he was so shocked that his soul almost left his body. He cried out involuntarily, Sect Master. This person was none other than the previous Sect Master of the Tai Chi faction, who had been killed by the human demon's talisman. His life tablet had been shattered, which confirmed his death. Then, a new Sect Master was chosen. The Tai Chi faction master calmly looked at him, then strode into the Tai Chi faction. The disciples and elders along the way were all stunned. No one stopped him along the way. He ascended to the Sect Master's peak and naturally sat on the Sect Master's throne. The appearance of his aura immediately alerted Mo Shao Chai, Elder Yu, and the other higher-ups of the Tai Chi faction, who all came to the Tai Chi Great Hall. Sect Master. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. Elder Yu was the most shocked of all. You? Aren't you dead? The Tai Chi faction master calmly sighed. When the talisman appeared, I had no way to avoid it. I could only use some secret technique to barely escape. However, I was also exiled to a certain place. I was trapped for 5 years before I managed to escape. This explanation was too far-fetched. But Sect Master's life tablet has clearly shattered, Elder Yu said in shock. The Tai Chi faction master said, the place where I was trapped must be special. It caused me to lose contact with my life tablet, which is why it shattered. He paused, then waved his sleeves. However, since I'm back, everyone can rest assured. There's no need to panic anymore. Many elders in the hall had strange expressions. The worst was over. The most distressing thing was that they thought the Sect Master was dead, so they chose a new Sect Master. The current Sect Master was not dead, but the previous Sect Master had returned. Something like this had never happened in the history of the Tai Chi faction. For a moment, they did not know what to do. What? Are you not happy that I'm back? Or is there something that you can't say? The Tai Chi faction master asked. As Elder Tian, Elder Yu stood up and said, Sect Master, you don't know this. We mistakenly thought that you were dead, so we chose another Sect Master. Is there such a thing? The sect leader of the Tai Chi sect was slightly taken aback. He then waved his hand dismissively. Forget it. You can't blame him for not knowing. Since I'm back, I'll remove him from his position as sect leader. From today onwards, all of you will listen to my commands. Elder Tian and the group of Earth Elders fell silent. If he had returned 2 years earlier, they wouldn't have made things difficult for him. However, 2 years ago, they had acknowledged Su Yu's position, and their respect and gratitude for him had come from the bottom of their hearts. They had already regarded him as the true faction master of the Tai Chi faction. Now that the former faction master had kicked Su Yu aside, they could not accept it. Without Su Yu, would the Tai Chi faction have its current stability and prosperity? What? Do you have any objections? The Supreme Ultimate Sect Master was displeased and said, according to the rules of the Supreme Ultimate Sect, The death of the previous sect master can only be confirmed as the next sect master. Since I'm back, he naturally has to wait. Are the rules like this? Mo Xiao Chai. Mo Xiao Chai stood on the side. She didn't say a word. She just faintly nodded and said, "These are indeed the rules. However," she added, "however, you need to experience the coronation of the sect leader once again." As a protector of the Tai Chi sect, Mo Xiao Chai couldn't resist the rules. Even if she could fight against the faction master, she still had to follow the rules. The faction master frowned slightly and said, "That's not a big deal. Let's do it tomorrow. Now, report to me the current situation of the Tai Chi faction." Elder Yu sighed inwardly. Since things had come to this, they could only take one step at a time. Hence, he explained the recent situation of the Tai Chi faction to the faction master. After listening to the ins and outs of the matter, the faction master's face darkened. He angrily snorted and slammed the table. Outrageous! The people who heard this all secretly thought that the people of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce had gone too far, and the human demon was too dangerous. That Su Yu is simply reckless. However, the faction master was reprimanding Su Yu. Elder Yu then said, "Faction master, it is precisely because of Su Yu's leadership that we are where we are today. Is there a misunderstanding?" The faction master rebuked him. "What misunderstanding?" Su Yu opened the Tai Chi faction's treasury without permission. He disregarded the Tai Chi faction's 5 billion-year foundation and almost destroyed it. Moreover, how could he be so careless when dealing with a human demon? The group of Earth Elders was infuriated. Su Yu's actions might have seemed unreasonable at the time, but the results later showed that he was absolutely right. The former faction master had returned after everything had settled down. He hadn't done anything at all. He had just sat there and enjoyed the stability and prosperity that Su Yu had brought. However, he was still reprimanding Su Yu. They were all extremely dissatisfied with his words. The stupidest thing of all was to imprison thousands of merchants and place a cauldron of unknown origin in order to choke the economic lifeline of the Tai Chi faction. What a fool! The faction master said, "Pass on my order. Release those merchants immediately and take back all the shops of the Cauldron organization. In addition, confiscate their funds and resources. Then arrest and interrogate them. Find out where they came from.